Tell a cookie to melt the butter and bring out the bibs. I want this lobster served up on a silver platter.
Well, as long as it's not from an Irish pub.
Welcome, everyone, to the Cheapsy Critics podcast, where we thrust into the 2000s for Atlantis, the Lost Empire, for our decades journey. We have...
Hello, everybody. I'm a geeky writer.
I'm Crimson Maroon.
And I'm Sprinks, and I'm not fully on board with this whole thrusting idea, but okay.
Well, we thrust into the depths.
And we this train has no brakes, Sprinks. Come on. We discussed this.
Okay, fine. I mean, I'm along for the ride.
Sprinks, you want to do our socials?
Absolutely. Thank you all for listening. If you'd like to follow along for updates and to leave comments on other platforms other than from the one you are currently listening and or watching on, we are at Cheap Seat Critics Podcast over on Facebook. We are at Cheap Seat Critic with no S on Twitter. Add the S for at Cheap Seat Critics on TikTok and Instagram, as well as our visual site of youtube.com/@CheapSeatCritics. And we also have a letterbox if you're interested in that as well.
And for decades, you've been doing our runner-ups. I'm sure you have a bit to talk about our current pick.
As you know from clicking on this one and listening to this coverage, we're doing Atlantis for the 2000s. Out of all the picks, I feel this is the one that's the most controversial pick to decide to captivate a whole decade.
Boy,
I don't know if I'm the only one on this.
I'd agree, having seen it now for the first time.
Our runner-ups, Atlantis was number one. Shocker. Our second one was Avatar 1, the first Avatar film, and our third place was American Psycho. And I know some of you are probably like, well, what about Iron Man? That came out 2008. You didn't cover that. Or The Dark Knight, or, all these other big named films and, things that came out in the 2000s. Well, we did do a meeting, in case this is your first time, listening to the podcast. We did do a previous supplemental meeting thing that isn't out at the time of this recording. Could come out, but it goes over everything we've discussed on voting and how we chose what we came up with.
Correct.
Yes, correct.
So I guess we'll go through our histories, starting with Sprinks.
Oh boy, my history with Atlantis. I had to actually ask for help from my mom about my history with Atlantis. I got a copy on DVD for my 5th birthday party from my aunt and uncle. And the first thing that I said out of my mouth when I opened the gift was, I hate this movie. I had never seen it before. I just saw the cover of it. I eventually got around to watching it, and I've seen this movie at least, 30 times since then. I don't necessarily... I'd say on average I see it maybe once every 2 years. It's kind of my history with it, yeah.
Quite a bit. Quite a regular. And writer, how about you?
I don't have any history with this. My history with Atlantis is just the usual historian nonsense of Atlantis isn't real. And then like most people who study history, I've got my own theories of where Atlantis might have been. And then my experience with Atlantis is just DC Universe stuff or video game related stuff. So the movie itself, nothing. I don't even think I've heard of it.
Oof. All right.
Little surprising, but then again, there's other things we've come to know that you've never heard of either.
Well, this is a really big Disney movie. A lot of people forget about this one.
It does go hand in hand with that early 2000s experimental animation era. A lot of people think Atlantis and Treasure Planet are kind of hand in hand.
They definitely do have a lot of similar things about the two of them. I'd probably agree with that experimental outlook, I guess. I think, thinking on it now, I think I have heard of this movie, but it's been through memes and like, uh, because a lot of people are demanding, with all the Disney live action remakes and stuff like that. I think that's how I heard about this film, because a lot of people want this film to be remade along with uh fuck, you just said it.
Treasure Planet?
Treasure Planet. Yeah.
Yes. I'm also in the bandwagon of a lot of people wanting these two movies to be a part of a Kingdom Hearts game, where they haven't really at all.
Oh, that would be kind of cool. I might actually play the game if these two are added.
You heard it here. They add Atlantis. Ryder will play it. And then I'll go with my history. I've seen it maybe four or five times. I've always enjoyed this film. I had a Donald's toy of the Leviathan. Long since gone. And that's pretty much it. Very limited. Seeing it here for the podcast prior, I had seen it maybe a decade. It's been a while.
Gosh. Did you just turn double digits and stop watching Disney movies? I feel like you've given examples of that before.
That's pretty likely, yeah. I guess I did. I turned towards TV and less movies at that point, I guess.
Gotcha. There is one small bit of history I almost forgot to share. I have seen, I guess, 2 of the scenes in the movie more times than anything else, because they are constantly used in my plays on the Disney Scene It game.
Okay.
So I've had plenty of history with that.
Sprix, have you played any of the numerous video games?
Atlantis video games?
Yeah, there are 4 of them.
No, I don't think I have.
Okay.
I don't think I've heard of them.
You had a first-person shooter.
Of Atlantis, the Lost Empire?
Well, of the franchise Atlantis. I don't know if it was Lost Empire, I don't know, from the movie, but they've had 4 Atlantis games.
All based off of this movie?
Yeah, this franchise, yeah. I don't know if it's all directly events of the movie or just events in Atlantis here. But it's got Milo and all of them, yeah.
Okay.
It's an Atlantis game.
Interesting.
Right,
This would be a very fun Lego game, actually.
Oh, Lego game?
Lego game? Yeah, they could do stuff with that.
I don't know if they'd have that many characters, though.
Oh, they'd have
Atlantean 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so we will go with the facts that I found. The budget was $120 million. Pretty pricey at the time. And the box office was 186 mil. So it was profitable. It just didn't warrant any backing by Disney, pretty much. Their plan was do a sequel and a TV show and to add an attraction at Disneyland or Disney World. But that got turned into the Nemo ride instead because of how this underperformed to the Disney execs.
I think this would be way cooler of a ride than Nemo's submarine tour.
I would agree. The subs look cooler as well.
I'm going to third that. Yes.
Assuming that they would model the submarines like the one in this. Pretty cool. Mike Mignola was involved in the creation of this, most notably the art style they went with. He is known for creating Hellboy.
That explains the square fingers.
Yeah, you could definitely see
Yep,
his work in this. And when Disney called him up, the first thing he said on the phone call was, "How'd you get my phone number?"
It's Disney. Duh.
Yeah, pretty much. A lot of people contribute the lackluster budget to Tomb Raider and Shrek being in theaters.
Ooh.
Yeah. This is the Angelina
Shrek would steal
Jolie,
this.
right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, the first Angelina Jolie Tomb Raider.
Shrek would definitely steal the spotlight from this prop, more than likely.
Yeah, I'd imagine. Notably, this isn't very Greek inspired. I'm sure writer
What?
knows pretty quickly.
No.
They specifically tried to stay away from any Greek architecture or iconography in the structures of Atlantis, and wanted to focus more on Cambodian and Mayan inspiration, which I think lends to a pretty cool looking place. I've always liked it.
Fascinating.
The language of Atlantean is a real language created by Mark Okren, the creator of Vulcan and Klingon for Star Trek.
Which is one of the many reasons why I recognized Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah, a couple nods to Star Trek in here. Something they scrapped, I think, thankfully, because I don't think it had any place here, was part of Milo's desire for adventure was to unravel his past because he's related to Blackbeard. So
Yeah,
I don't know how they would have crammed that in there. I think that wouldn't have been very good.
This movie's already juggling a lot. I'm happy that ain't here.
Yeah.
This is an hour and a half movie, and they do a lot, almost too much. Actually, I probably would argue too much in some cases. Never mind.
Yeah, I think this movie could have done well with hour 45, maybe even 2 hours.
Yeah. It needs
this is the highest body count in a animated Disney film.
To date?
Yeah, to date.
That's cool. What a cool fact.
Yeah, I don't know how they got the estimates, because they estimate that there were 35,000 Atlanteans killed in the opening, when the dome closes. I don't know where they get that number, but apparently that's backed. That's a backed number.
Did Whitmore ever state how many members were for the crew of the ship? The sub?
Well, Rourke said there were 200. So we know there were 200 on the sub. So there's that. So just because the Atlantean opening made this the highest body count animated Disney film.
That's fair. I mean, they are wiping out essentially a civilization.
Human death count. The dinosaur movie technically has more, but I'm going to.
Who cares about dinosaurs?
Yeah.
Look, one of these is historically accurate, okay?
Yes.
And the more historically accurate one is probably Jurassic Park.
Wow, my favorite Disney film, Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Almost out of facts here. Good thing. Phil Morris, the voice actor for Doc, sweet. His speech pattern and the speed at which he said his lines made it very difficult for the animators to animate his mouth.
Yeah, I can tell sometimes.
And the last thing, in the trailers, it is shown that Vikings stumbled across Atlantis, starting a war with them. The whole Viking storyline is cut out entirely of the movie, even though it is shown in the trailer.
That's a fact I know. And in some cases of DVD copies, it is a deleted scene that can be viewed.
Julio. And that is all the facts I have. There were a lot for this. It was hard to pare it down to however many that was, like 10 or so. So we'll go into the movie. We're doing a 4-act structure made up by us. So we're going from the start to when Milo is doing the presentation on the Leviathan and the entrance to Atlantis.
On the submarine.
Yes. Well, that's his only presentation of it.
Okay.
Yeah, so act popcorn, similar to Shawshank. Boop. Sprinks, you go first.
All right, I'll start with my... I got a lot of questions to ask.
Hopefully they can be answered.
Hopefully the two of you can assist me and the audience members who have the same questions as well. What caused the tidal wave at the beginning of the film?
Like the explosion thing?
Like the thing to make the ocean appear, I guess, because it
it
came from
was
all directions.
it was fairly ambiguous during the opening. The only hint that we have on it is that the Atlantean king was trying to use the heart as a weapon. Later on, he says a line about it, and their attempt to turn it into a weapon is backfired, more or less.
And they killed. They did it to themselves, more or less.
Okay, so Poseidon's fury just got them.
Sure.
No,
There's two avenues. There's the
Well, I'm
abuse
not
of the
actually saying
weapon, and then what Kita said that like the gods struck down with a star or something along those lines. Because you can see like a light come from the sky. So
yeah,
maybe it was like a meteor or something.
I took it to
pretty
mean
ambiguous.
it was interesting that it sounded like an arrow bolt, almost. It had the same like I'm trying to remember. I recognized the sound effect, but it was like an arrow bolt that came across the sky. So I kind of wrote down a few theories. If the Greek gods were real in this universe, it would have been Artemis or it would have been Zeus. But we know it was the fault of the Atlanteans somehow, just by the dialogue we get later on it.
Yeah, the king owns up to it. We don't really know to what degree his actions specifically caused that, but his thirst for power with utilizing the weapon, I guess, yeah, probably the best we got for it.
When I was first watching this, I thought this super advanced civilization just hitting the bongs as an alarm system and the shields coming up. I thought that were the same thing, and I was taken to Wakanda of slapping water to raise the shields and lower the shields. I laughed. I now later on we know that it's not that, but I just thought it was kind of funny. Just the way they cut it made it seem like it was the bong raising the shields.
A funny parallel. Black Panther stole from Atlantis and made it worse.
Yeah, that's what Black Panther does.
You said you had a lot of questions. Are a lot of them in the beginning here?
Throughout the film.
Okay. Ryder, do you have something in the beginning? At least in the act, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess in the opening here, when Atlantis raises its shield, some people are not fast enough to get inside. I think the sense of scale on Atlantis was also a bit inconsistent in the opening. They fixed this later, as you learn. It was like just this like central chunk or whatever of Atlantis that was saved or preserved. But it was kind of just a little bit on the inconsistent side in the opening here. So it was very minor because I think it's an animation thing, less than a writing thing. But
well, it was this big thriving civilization. They only had time to save the center of the city, right?
That's what I'm gathering.
Grasp of it was.
Yeah, that's what I'm gathering. But like I said, I think it just some of the animation was a little on the inconsistent side with how big the central part of the city that they were saving was. But that just might be me, because I don't have any issues with that as far as that goes in the animation department in terms of the size of Atlantis. The animation department has other issues going forward, but not that.
Okay. Yeah, I never really paid attention to comparing the city size in the beginning to throughout the rest.
Mm-hmm.
I'll point out a little inconsistency with the timeline here. They're in Widmore's office. The fish tank has coelacanths in it. They were not discovered until the 30s. So,
ooh, that's like 20 years too early.
Yeah. Unless, I mean, he collects stuff maybe on his journeys. He found them early and never announced the discovery of them.
That's what I was going to say. Like, discovered and documented and publicly published versus just keeping them to himself secretly.
Yeah, for someone seeking fame and fortune, I have no idea why he would keep it to himself.
Was what?
Well, he said he likes. No, he said he likes to keep to himself his privacy, right?
all the hired guns were the ones who wanted the money and fortune.
Yeah, but no, not money and fortune, but he's looking for fame.
When did he say that? Or something like that?
The guy's looking to discover Atlantis. He's literally practicing a speech to his fucking skeletons or whatever in his closet. It's kind of an obvious character trait.
Well,
Well, then this will.
Yeah, go ahead.
You go ahead, Crimson.
Okay. Well, his motives, at least what is stated, is that he's doing this for Milo's grandfather.
That
and
is.
the deal.
Yeah, he wants to clear his
he-
grandfather's name, but that also coincides with him being famous.
He specifically says he likes to stay private into himself, which contradicts what you're implying.
When does he say that?
When he's doing yoga, and when Milo says, "My father or grandfather
you
never,
mean Whitmore.
Thaddeus never." Yeah, who are you talking about?
Okay. I was talking about the beginning. It's fine. Whatever.
Wait, I am confused. Right?
I'm confused
Who
who
are
you're
you
talking
talking about?
I was talking about Milo.
Oh, fully agreed.
Yeah, okay.
I thought you were talking about Whitmore this whole time.
That's
No,
what I thought, because we were
I'm
talking
not-
about Whitmore.
I am not talking about Whitmore. No. I'm talking about Milo, guys.
Oh,
Okay,
then
yeah,
yes.
sure. Yeah, we were talking about Whitmore, so I thought you were talking about him as well.
Oh, okay. No. Okay, sorry. I just realized what I got lost on. I was looking in my head, and I don't remember there being a fish tank in his fucking boiler room. But you're talking about Whitmore's fish tank.
Yes.
Okay, that makes so much more sense. Confusion.
Yes,
There we go. We're on the same
was-
page now.
God,
Also, it is
that was gonna lead me. Oh,
yeah. It is also
ahead, Ryder.
DC, 1914. The world is at war.
they don't touch on that.
Well, we don't know what month this takes place. We just know the year.
We kind of do actually.
Yeah, we do.
We do.
When he
They said
gives his
before
letter
winter.
of resignation. It's of October 13th, 1914, of 2-week notice of final day, so it would have been September 30th, 1914.
The war is on.
Okay. Well, let's tackle that then right now. What should they have done then?
Oh,
Because all these things would have been built pre-World War One. They were all set up already.
Wouldn't Milo be drafted?
I mean,
no,
that's not
Americans.
guaranteed.
Americans didn't get
They
drafted.
entered the war in 17.
Yeah,
1917.
yeah. Americans didn't get into the war until later, so I don't have an issue with him being involved in the war. It's not. Oh, that's not my issue.
Well, that's why I'm bringing it up now. What would be your issues with the World War One stuff?
Well, because it's around the era of World War One, a lot of the tech that they use later on is not real.
Oh, like the sub and stuff.
Yeah. You should look at
It's
the. You should look.
secretive and private.
You should look at the size of submarines in World War One.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is a fantasy, but I agree. It's not. I mean, we can't even make subs like this if we wanted either. Plus, they're not practical.
Yeah.
This sub's almost as big as Titanic.
I do like the only like iconography they really take from World War One is the long coats and the gas masks, which are pretty cool. They're intimidating, so I do like that, I suppose.
And all the guns are correct except for Mole's submachine gun that he uses. All the others are era accurate.
Yes.
Okay.
I might have an issue with Helga's flare gun, but that's more about the range.
It
Yeah.
looked like it had a revolver. It looked like a 6-shooter, but
I don't recall seeing that.
Let's see what else.
The barrel looked fine and everything,
Their
but the-
artillery weapon is fucking. That was inaccurate.
Well, I'm talking more like the handheld ones.
Yeah.
Because I doubt those planes they used are real, but I don't know on that one.
Oh,
were
I
those,
will
were
touch
those
on that
real?
later. I will touch on that. That's one of my history things I looked up.
Ah. All
I
right.
looked up this movie with the objective lens that I went in through this time on viewing, which do for the podcast. I went on history lessons looking for things, which some are just really out there.
I'll look forward to your insights as we go along.
Yes. Originally, writer, I thought you were touching on Whitmore for his use of what he says to Milo, of how sincere it is versus how manipulative it is. Because I think that dialogue that Whitmore has with Milo is teetering on if Whitmore is in good interest to Milo or if he's more
Very, very ambiguous.
trying to serve his to what's the word I'm looking for? Clear his mind of his promise he made to Thaddeus.
Those two are mutually exclusive.
Upon Milo's arrival, Whitmore had everything already going. Everything was already planned that Milo's a yes. There was no like, okay, good, we'll do it. We'll work on it for you. We'll get there. It was already done and ready. And you could say it wasn't, and that Whitmore had it planned if it wasn't for the cat.
Yeah.
I think the cat showing up which is convenient, but the cat showing up to me proves that everything prior that he asked, like, am I packed? Is everything like taken care of? Is already done.
Yeah. I think it would be interesting if he said no, because first of all, he's lucky that they said yes, but like the response that if he gave no, I think they still would have gone. They just all would have all died.
Yeah, it would have been different.
Well, they needed someone to read the book, so the mission wouldn't have worked anyways.
Yeah,
no.
That's kind of why they didn't go without him. They needed his talents. He was a required member. As for the manipulation angle, I think Milo gives off enough to where anyone looking into him could pretty much guarantee his answer would be a yes to this adventure. I think it would be a very small percentage chance that he'd say no. Incredibly low chance he'd say no.
That's not what I was saying, but I'd agree. Yes.
Okay. What's your angle on it?
On him being like the convenience of him saying yes.
Well, what you meant by the no thing?
Oh yeah, the what I meant by the no thing is that he's already got a bunch of things prepared and stuff like that. So it's like he has no like guarantee still, and all this stuff has happened in the background. So as far as I understand it, he's already got the military lined up to ship them out to a specific location in like the hundreds in order to set this expedition, because that's not something you schedule overnight. So that was scheduled ahead of time, pretty much.
Yeah,
unless
they were mercenaries, not the military, though.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about the people on who were running the ship, not Rourke's subgroup.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure everyone on this expedition is a merc, right? They never state that they're military.
Rourke's group is a mercs. The people who are running the ship are not.
The people who retrieved the Shepherd's Journal from Iceland, which is Rourke's team, are the mercenaries, but the rest of the submarine crew advised are not all mercenaries working under Rourke.
I wasn't saying working under Rourke. We just don't see anything brought up about the military being involved.
Okay, so World War I is in progress. People are still getting shipped across the Atlantic. Presumably not soldiers, because this isn't America hasn't entered the war yet. But we're still shipping supplies using our military. We're just not entering soldiers into the war.
I don't know history as well as you two, so I'll just sit back.
The point is we don't need a verbal reference. You can assume that the military is shipping them out here because it's a joint operation.
Well, we don't get anything that implies it's a joint operation.
We don't need it. You can assume it.
I don't think there's enough for that.
The military would want a fucking power source. They even say they're going to sell it to the highest bidder.
Yeah. They'd want it. Doesn't mean they know about this project.
Okay. Whatever. Moving on.
Oh.
Okay.
I mean, I agree with that. Otherwise, I feel like there would have been more different nationalities aboard of crew members on the team, or like inward spies or something along that lines. If everyone knew of what they were getting or going after, which could have been, they could have just been killed. We don't know.
Oh, yeah, everyone's a red shirt on this expedition. That's not Rourke's crew. Like,
pretty much.
Let's see. I'll touch on I guess a question. Milo's explanation at the beginning of the Shepherd's Journal and the translation error of Ireland to Iceland and everything. How accurate is that whole conversation he's giving?
I'd say pretty much zero. The whole mistranslation, the translation bit, I'm pretty sure wouldn't work here.
Okay, because I don't know how to read Nordic, but
Oh, right, you're more historical. How accurate is that?
the Iceland Nordic thing?
Them screwing up a translation, yeah.
Oh, man, that happens all the time.
Okay,
I didn't just mean the translation error. I meant the entirety of what Milo's discussing
in his presentation.
History, yeah.
He speed runs it. A fair bit of it is accurate, but it's like bullet point like notes that don't really support the existence of or concept of Atlantis, if that makes sense. So the lines he's drawing are fictional, but the events he's naming are technically correct, I believe.
Is it just fictional use to build to the world of the film and the character of Milo? Because Milo solving the correction error of being a linguistic of it being Iceland to then Whitmore saying that they found the book in Iceland shows the intelligence of Milo in this scene. And that he knows how to do his job.
Yeah, I mean, that's true.
Without it just kind of being a one-worded thing and then appears later in the film of, out of the blue.
Yeah, so, I thought that was done on purpose for us to know that Milo's intelligent. Like, he still got it right,
Yeah.
Yeah. Whitmore's original expedition to get the book in Iceland. Interesting that he was in Iceland, because no one thought it was there, right? That was Milo's theory that he just came up with.
Oh shoot, I don't recall that, because Whitmore explains the team went to Iceland, but
we have no idea how he figured out to go to Iceland. I presume they could have just found his grandfather's notes.
Well, the grandfather found the book.
Weren't in Atlantis.
Yeah, his grandfather's there, isn't he, on the Iceland expedition?
Yeah.
Okay.
The whole kissing because he found the book. So I guess it's implied that the grandfather figured out that the
I'd assume
translation was wrong.
I assume grandfather figured out first, yeah, or he had a different clue that led him there.
Thaddeus was their linguistics before he passed, so otherwise I don't think they would have needed Milo for the Atlantean expedition if Thaddeus was still alive. And it kind of, I guess that somewhat hints at that Thaddeus knew of them being 3D mercenaries, which could play into the thought of how did Thaddeus die.
Yeah, we never find that out.
We never find that out. I thought it was going to be a reveal because Rourke kind of was about to, don't be an idealist like your grandfather at the end of the film. I thought they were going to at least to be blatant or imply something, but they really don't. So grandfather died of old age, presumably still.
Yeah. All it kind of showed was Rourke wasn't, side by side, or wasn't in line with Thaddeus's thoughts.
Yeah, he was not fond of him.
We'll touch on a interesting cartoon played for humor but error. Okay. When Milo gets his phone call during his presentation at the beginning, he gets on the chalkboard with fresh chalk on the C, no chalk stain. He then does it again after fixing the boiler of the map, where the map does stain him. But when he stands up to show the X on the map, it would actually be mirrored on his body.
Yep. Yeah, I wrote that down.
Yep. Noticed that one too. Uh, let's see. Another animation thing for humor. Uh, when Thatch sneezes or coughs or throws up over the side of the ship, he loses his glasses because they go flying off, more or less. And his
Oh,
hands are in frame when we see them flying off. And then they're back next to pretty much the immediately right afterwards.
Oh, when Milo shows up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the,
Across the ship.
on the ship. Yeah.
Yeah.
carrots. What did it have to
When
do
we
with
when we
That was
cut from
improv,
the
by the way. The voice acting was improv there by Michael J. Fox.
oh
the carrots?
Yeah, because he's allergic to carrots.
that's
Oh.
kind of funny. All right. Let's see.
Let's see what else in the notes here.
Oh yeah, I got another note. I guess for Whitmore's room. Uh, I think it bothered me at the time reading it again. It's just a minor thing. He says clues, coordinates. It's all right here. I kind of laughed because coordinates aren't clues. My guess is the interpretation is that like they're coordinates to the clues. But it's still funny to me.
True. And then there's also like the broad aspect of they could have a general coordinate, right? It's like we have a coordinate here, but it's in the vicinity. So then that could kind of be a clue, right? It's like around the coordinate and not at the coordinate. Could that
Yeah.
then be classified as a clue?
Suppose
Yeah.
so.
That's why I said it's kind of half and half, and I find it funny.
Oh, while we're still in that room, the water effect coming off the tank onto the floor and onto the characters, I really liked. I liked a lot of the blue lighting in this movie. It
There's a
pretty
lot of that.
much goes throughout the whole thing, and I really like the aesthetic from it. They picked the right color blue.
Would it better have been a Ron color blue?
Yeah, I mean, if they wanted like a darker blue, I don't think it would be visually as pleasing. Or if they went like a baby blue, it wouldn't be as visually pleasing. I think they picked a good blue.
Okay.
Was anyone else getting whiplash in the Whitmore scene? I mean, you guys have seen it before, but I was definitely. I don't know if I'm just old or it was just happening way too fast and way too
Could be
quickly.
a factor. I know what you mean. I might no, not a whiplash for me, but I think this film does do a lot of fast action points. The first one is going after Harcourt, and it's just really quick cuts to chasing him,
Yeah.
which I guess is kind of the lead up to this Whitmore part, where it's just a back and forth, but real snappy in responses.
Yeah.
If that's what you mean, the
Yeah, I think it was too much. Like it was more like it felt like a sensory overload almost. And I think I think the over the top thing was the Whitmore doing yoga thing. I think we could have cut that. I know it's done for more haha visual gag stuff. I think that was a little too much. Just because I like every as you say, everything is happening really quickly and it is very snappy and for the most part pretty sharp dialogue. Um I think it just needed a little bit less on that happening on the front end of things.
And I doubt that the use of the snappy is to what's the word I'm looking for? Pair with, I guess, Sweet's use of dialogue of speaking real fast. I don't think it was a thought to be edited in such way to, share the both. But I think that was just an after fact or on the use of the voice actor, which was Philip Morris, I believe Crimson said. Or Phil Morris.
Something like that. I'll bring up my notes. Make sure. Because I am just great with names. Yeah, Phil Morris.
Something I do like about this film that I don't know why, maybe I've caught another animation or Disney films, but this one specifically, the use of transitions. They do a lot of kind of classic, Star Wars use transition cuts that you don't necessarily see in animation. There's a kind of a creative approach one with the lightning going to Whitmore's, and then you have a top left diagonal pan down when they enter the building, and then when the scene's over to go to the submarine, it's a bottom left diagonal transition.
Can't picture them. Didn't leave an impression on me.
The only
Good
transition one
catch.
I remember is the instant one between him standing at Whitmore's office and then on the ship.
Yes,
Like the hard
which
cut?
is that was not a hard cut. That's the bottom left one I just described. But Milo's in the same position.
Okay.
Also, I feel like Sinister would be someone to question this on, but I think a saxophone is only used in one scene of the whole film, which is the introduction to Helga,
Yeah.
which I think is used for a seductive play onto Milo of just her character, but it's the only time it's used.
I don't think it's for seductive purposes. I think it's to nod at her character archetype
The femme
being
fatale.
portrayed in that
Yeah.
scene. Yeah, the femme fatale, film noir type thing. I think it was seductive. It was just a nod to her inspiration there. Because then later, obviously, they flip it where she's a lot more militaristic and not like that at all.
In my notes, I wrote down that Whitmore and Thaddeus graduated class of 1866 from what Whitmore shared.
They're old shockers.
Oh, okay. Another question I have. Being that they couldn't read the Shepherd's Journal, of it being Atlantean and linguistic, was the rapping on the Shepherd's Journal actually done by Thaddeus, or was it open the entire time until Whitmore needed Milo and he rapped it?
Yeah, we don't know. We know a page got torn out at some point. Could have been during the expedition, before it got wrapped. Could have been wrapped, opened, torn out, rewrapped. Could have been torn. No, that's pretty much the only times. But
my question
we don't know.
Is that wrapping of the Shepherd's Journal done by Thaddeus?
Don't know.
Don't know. Could be.
Okay. Because I didn't know if that could also factor into Whitmore's character, if he's one to, forge Thaddeus and write it in himself. Play to Milo.
From what we have of Whitmore, I would probably lean on the side of no.
Especially by the ending. He's not revealed to be like a villain or anything. He's just doing this for Thaddeus. I don't think so.
We have the Crimson. You touched on the blue lighting. I think the aquarium with Whitmore and Milo discussing with each other with the water texture playing on the table and around them helps set the tone of the future of the film.
Sure. They will be underwater.
Okay, I didn't mean it as that basic, but
okay. What layers?
Well, I meant like the whole discussion is about this expedition that they're going on, but they're not under the water, but the lighting plays that they are because it's the blue effect. And then even when they're on the ship, it's not all blue all the time, or when they're doing their expedition. I think the blue lighting only, there's probably some color connection to the blue lighting used to the film. But I believe it pairs mostly with the flashing warning of red to go with the primary color contrast of red and blue back and forth when it's used and uses the film. But there is no red light in the discussion with Whitmore. So I think it's just to set stage and tone for the future.
Okay. I'll jump to Mole's introduction. Funny dude. My dirt, you disturbed the dirt. Yeah. I always found it cool how he got the dirt from Milo's fingernail, and which identified him strictly through that.
A little over the top, but yes.
Oh, certainly. He was able to identify the paper by sight with no equipment. And the number 2 lead, about the other stuff he listed. but still cool nonetheless to me. And we get the Sweet's introduction, which I know Ryder likes.
I do like Dr. Sweet, but I am gonna actually. I think I'm gonna roll us back to the giant fucking hangar that this submarine is in.
Mhm.
We got a scaling problem. I try to figure out how to describe this. The submarine fits about 200 people, but the scale of it relative to the ship that it's in is way too big for what this era is supposed to be technology wise.
Yeah. They went with the spectacle approach.
Yeah, it
Opposed
look
to
it.
the,
Oh yeah, it
practical.
absolutely looks cool, but it's essentially it reminds me of like best description is I described it as to like a giant ship within like a star destroyer almost, because the host ship that is carrying this submarine is gigantic based upon this the scale of what we see.
Do you think it could be inspired a bit out of Jules Verne's 10,000 Leagues Under the Sea?
Yeah, the writers said that.
Oh, okay.
That is confirmed.
I'll touch on something.
Yeah.
Which is the not introduction, but the laid out paperwork that Whitmore shows Milo of the crew.
Mhm.
First thing is Rourke is the last one and hidden, which kind of gives that covered, secretive character, and it's never touched on or spoken of. So I think that's a purposeful use.
Confirmed by the writers on my fact
okay.
research. So that is accurate.
Okay. Vinny's headshot is a mugshot when he had to be broken out of. I didn't write it down.
Prison.
Yeah, prison. Some kind of foreign prison. I checked all the dates on the papers. All of them are prior to 1914 and match, so it's not just filled in mumbo garbo gibberish on the papers. There are darker tones to the letters E, M, and O. These could be. This all could be as of late of a standardized typewriter of the 1910s, or an earlier device of typewriters, such as the Hammond Ideal typewriter of 1884, the Fitch typewriter of 1891, the Gardner typewriter of 1893, or the Underwood 1 typewriter 10-inch Kika number 990 of 1897, all of which are U.S. made except the Finch of 1989, which is, 1891, which is developed in the UK.
What did you look up?
I looked up typewriters of 1910 to find any spacing error or anything that would darken tones. Specifically, if it's at the end of a line, before I don't know the technical term, but the cartridge to move to the left to type out a next line, that the last one stamped would usually be a darker one, but the darker that I noticed of the E, M, and O are throughout in the middle. So I didn't think it would necessarily be the standardized typewriter where it gets to the end and then has to be moved. I didn't write down which one it is, but one of these is a curved typewriter, and I believe it's probably that one to go with. And I also spoke out about the Fitch one of 1891, which is UK, which could be the one used, but I would lean more to a US one of the time that could have been used.
Well, also, typewriters are kind of like guns, where if you type a letter, let's say you're a criminal, you type a letter, ransom letter or something, they can identify the type if you have the corresponding typewriter. They can link them, because every typewriter is unique on the pressures and where the keys are. Every single one is unique to some degree. So this particular one,
I did not take imagery of the Atlantis film crew full files to put into a recognition of typewriters. I
But
didn't
what
know
I'm
that far.
leading up to is since you're saying it's consistent that those letters were boldened,
Yes.
that means all of those were written by the same typewriter. It's the same specific typewriter. So they were consistent if
yes.
that is their goal. I'm not saying model of typewriter, an individual typewriter.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, they were all written with the same typewriter, not type.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Then yeah, more than likely. It was just something I
Can't believe how
noticed.
deep we got into that.
That was my first big history thing I looked up because it stood out to me.
And Ryder over here is like, yeah, typewriters. Have you
Ryder's
used a
like, sure,
typewriter, Ryder?
Could be.
I've used it once. Yeah.
It's not his style.
I mean, they're fun to use, but I want a digital typewriter, and what I mean by that is like just a typewriter that I can just replace my keyboard with when I'm writing, just for funsies, but it still goes to my computer.
Want something with a backspace instead of an eat space?
Backspace instead of eat space.
Well, an eat space on a typewriter goes back a letter, so you just stamp on top of the old letter.
Oh, gotcha. Yes.
Here's your typewriter knowledge. Tack on other act stuff. Doc's introduction. He was funny, humorous, very quick. Get a good grasp of his character.
Yep. I really like the fact that he understands all the gibberish that Milos is speaking. Milo. Okay.
Yes.
They got the right medical equipment for the time period.
I'm glad it's also not thrown away. It's not just like a joke that, he can cut the time in half with a saw, but the saw comes back later in the film.
Yep. And he clearly bragged the same way about the saws to Milo as he did to Audrey, because she makes the same complaints about it.
I went person to person every checkup.
Yep.
That's fun to
I'm
think
not
about.
sure if either of you two caught it, but there was a throwaway poop joke.
Yes.
That Packard over the intercom says someone stole the L for the motor pool sign.
You're very funny.
Yep.
Something along those lines.
Yeah.
I did hear that, yes. Let's see. I actually like Milo's introduction to Mustache Man. Is what I called him. Then I changed his name to Rico once I understood what he was.
Oh, Vinny.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Mustache Man.
Gotcha. I know who you're talking about now.
Yeah.
Mustache.
Yeah. No. So I actually really liked when Milo asked him what was in his cart, and he just responded like mixing office supplies with explosive related things, and it was kind of funny. I appreciated the nonchalance he had about the whole thing.
Note cards, paper clips,
Big ones.
Big ones.
supplies. Yes.
Glue, nitroglycerin, gunpowder.
Funny dude.
The introduction to Cookie was another history thing I went down the rabbit hole of. It shows Cookie's intelligence when he holds up 3 fingers when he says 4, which is something I just caught. But when Helga says the men need their 4 basic food groups, I looked up if that is accurate to the time period of 1914.
The food groups?
The 4 food groups.
Okay.
So the first published dietary guidance by the USDA was a farmer's bulletin written in 1894 by W.O. Atwater, the first director at the Office of Experiment Stations in the USDA. He suggested diets for American males based on content of protein, carbohydrate, fat, and mineral matter, which is the 4 food groups at the time. The first USD food guide, Food for Young Children, by Caroline Hunt, appeared in 1916, consisting of 5 food groups.
Still a couple
So
years.
they are
before.
accurate?
They are accurate, yeah.
Okay.
Funny enough,
If it
by
would
the
have
way,
been 2 years later, they would have been 5.
funny enough, what the old man says, bacon, beans, lard, and something else, whiskey. Funny enough, he does actually cover the 4 basic food groups in that. Beans are vegetables. Whiskey is essentially made from wheat.
Well, would have gone in the accurate time period of such. So protein, bacon, carbohydrate, fat, and mineral matter.
Yeah. And he covered the 4 basic food groups at the time. It was just, I thought it was hilarious, even if it's played off as a joke.
Yeah, he serves salad and whatever else I forgot.
Caesar salad, escargot, and I forget the third one.
Yeah. During Milo's presentation of the Leviathan and the entrance to Atlantis, all I was thinking was this is purely for the audience because they would have been debriefed on this before the expedition.
Yes, everyone on that ship would have been debriefed.
Just go deep underwater, be like, all right, so what's the plan?
Yeah.
Yeah, so not great. Definitely just for the audience. Unfortunate.
I like the comedic introduction of Mole of saying, Milo, you asked too many questions, and then gives him a plethora of questions right after.
True.
Yes.
And was it Ramirez? I don't remember the name they go by, but Ramirez. Her saying, "I used to take lunch money from guys like this." Funny.
Oh, Audrey?
One line. You got a good idea of the character just from that one line.
Yep.
Let's see. Anyone else got anything for this act?
Last thing I have is when Whitmore gives his thumbs up of the submarine dropping, he crosses his fingers behind his back. And I could see that as a use of ill intent upon them, that he doesn't mean the thumbs up.
It's definitely ambiguous.
But yeah, I think it's more for like his thought of like, I hope they make it kind of thing.
Yeah.
With his character after. But Ryder, I was curious on mostly your take being first time viewer of, how Whitmore in this beginning part came across to contrasting him to his last scene, which I think totally gives you the whole thought of him.
Yeah. As a first time viewer, it's definitely suspicious. Like, you knew something's wrong. I know Rourke says like something about being enriched with their expedition, so you could tell very early on Rourke is not interested in Atlantis for discovery. He has ulterior motives. With Whitmore, with his very eccentric introduction, I was just like, this is too good to be true. So I was still suspicious of him, and I think it is very intentional of the crossing your fingers behind the back, because it can be read both ways. He could just be an enthusiastic guy, or you could be suspicious of him.
With that is everything I have on Act 1.
Ryder. How accurate was the submarine terms for descent and stuff?
They're okay. It's just, it's not like 100% accurate, but it's good enough.
All right. Because I had no idea. It sounded all good to me.
Yeah, it's all good. I'm more familiar with recent submarine terminology terms. It could have been still being developed back then, but as far as I could tell, it's pretty decent.
All right.
Yeah, it was about this time of the film where I had 2 pages of notes, mostly on the food fact and the typewriter stuff to really give me coverage of my notes. But at this time I did message both Ryder and Crimson that I would not be covering naval commands or coordinates history if someone else wanted to tackle that.
I think we just did. This pretty fairly accurate naval terminology. I had to double check the hydrophone thing or the whatever the
Yeah,
old
it was
lady's using.
hydrophone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
whatever.
she said
I heard this.
hydrophone.
Yeah, I had to double check that. It's accurate. And I like the fiddling with all the bits and bobs and how they're listening, how they can tell that it's a metallic sound they're listening to. Because that is also true. You'd be able to discern that as well. So they do some good, they do some decent work. It's pretty quick, but it's nice.
Last thing I have for the act, the bubbles when the sub descends, originally, was very well animated. What a pain in the neck that would have been. They were very consistent
It was
with
all
the
hand-drawn.
bubbles. Yeah, it was hand drawn.
That
So,
one scene of the descending ship
terrible.
probably took at least 2 months to draw.
The zooming
Yeah,
out of
it's
Atlantis must have also taken just as long.
Oh, God. I noticed that with the birds, like those green birds at the very end of the film, of flying off. They just stopped. They stopped animating them.
The panning out of Atlantis at the end is 150 drawings on top of each other on a 100-foot drawing. That's how they created
Wow.
that scene.
I still want one.
It would be cool. Just have one of those
One of the original
150
drawings.
pieces.
Yeah.
That
Fuck
would
yeah,
be
I'd want
really
one.
cool. That'd be really cool. They're probably in the Disney archives somewhere.
This is true. I would hope so.
If that is it, we'll go to Act 2. Ryder, were you done?
I think I am. Yes.
All right, so Act 2 is the Leviathan attacking to when Milo gets healed by Kita.
One thing I do like, I guess, a small detail because I did pause to look at all the shipwrecks.
I was going to ask on that, yeah.
There are a few wooden ships among there, so the Leviathan would have had to surface to get them, or I have I have no idea of why, though, that they would, or is it just because I thought the impression was that the submarine was here. They're looking for Atlantis specifically, or does the Leviathan just hunt generally in the waters?
Well, the Leviathan is the guardian of the entrance to Atlantis, so I guess we don't know how large its protection domain of the entrance is. So I guess it could count the surface as part of that area.
I would say the surface can count because at the very beginning of the film we see that they can fly.
That's
Oh yeah. No, I'm not. Yeah, that's not my concern. Obviously, they can fly, but I'm more like, I don't understand if it's
why
being.
would it bother?
Yeah, why would it bother? And also, if it's on autopilot or there are actually people in there.
Well, I'm thinking if the boat was passing by, yeah, why bother? But if the boat was like a fishing vessel or a deep sea, like bell divers, that
Okay, but
could
we
cause
see
it.
like sailboats and stuff like that, and bell divers are very very limited at what they can do.
Yeah, I guess the best faith answer would just be it's in its protection domain, so just kills any vessel
Control
in the
Alt
vicinity.
Delete. That's fair. It's a minor thing, but it presents more world building problems because given all these shipwrecks, people would have noticed.
Well, I guess the other little variable to it is, are all these shipwrecks from the Leviathan?
Most likely.
It's
You don't usually get a
implied to
big
be.
grouping.
I'm just
You
saying
don't
we
usually
don't.
get a big grouping of ships like that in open water.
Well, we don't know
No.
if is it open water above them.
I mean, we see where the ship is.
So
That's-
yes.
There's nothing on the horizon.
Oh, when they launch. Okay,
So,
when they launch the sub.
and with how deep it is, it certainly is not shore.
God, what is the closest plot of land they're close to?
Iceland.
Iceland, maybe. I mean, most theories of of Atlantis, it's either somewhere in the Mediterranean or somewhere in the Atlantic.
Lots of boats,
yeah, that
lots
was
of
just one of my
times,
questions.
every era, as he put it. We got 8,000 years of ships here, presumably.
Yeah, thereabouts.
Small detail I noticed that both works in the, maybe I'm overthinking, but also maybe not, of when the ship is being attacked, Audrey closes a door on a crew member and he pretty much drowns behind the door. Yes, it is, she has no time to think, kind of, just close, otherwise they'll be drowned. But it also kind of plays into the hint of the crew being a bit merciless.
It's also kind of procedure when a vessel's flooding to cut off flooding sections.
True, but
Yeah.
if she did wait 2 seconds, that guy would have survived.
The,
Or,
the
to
ship
a
could have
point,
sank in
but
2 seconds.
That's
Yeah.
true. But I think that
there's a similar scene in Titanic where there's just the risk of these
She has to outrun
submarines or ballast water areas. It's just
They have to. That person would have to outrun the water coming in behind them in order to make it. I don't think they were doing that, if I remember.
Oh, they were running, but the door just slammed shut by Audrey closing it. But I think that could be played off a little of the mercenary aspect.
Yeah, they're not as all good as they seem. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
I could sort of see a bit in that, but it can be. It's something that's clouded in procedure, but I guess it is a bit of indicative of that. This submarine has a bunch of fucking small bug fighters that can launch.
Yeah.
Good
baby
God.
escape pods weaponized.
Good God. The Allies would pay like billions for this in order to stop the German menace in World War One. I think they would have paid billions to stop it in World War Two as well.
Well, they didn't have a Whitmore.
That's true. Privately owned, produced, manufactured.
There's no real evidence of it, but this could be just an alternate world, we have Atlantis here with robotic ships and whatnot.
Funnily enough, not the first Atlantis I've seen with robots trying to kill me, but whatever. Audrey definitely died.
Robots in Stargate Atlantis. I haven't
Uh,
watched Stargate Atlantis.
yes, I think there are robots in that, but that's not what I was referring to. Audrey definitely died to shrapnel, by the way.
No, she dodged all of those.
No, she picked up a metal beam. She was fine.
Yeah, so plot armor. Just gonna note that down.
Yeah, plot armor that all the named characters survived.
Oh yeah, all the red shirts died. All the named characters survived.
Well, we had like 30 people survive this. Okay.
I am impressed that given how like powerful the Leviathan is, I'm surprised it just didn't open up with a fucking laser beam, energy beam.
Do you think it's
when
trying
it
to
caught
study?
it in its claw and crush it?
Yeah, it's very a lot of plot armor is at play here because the Leviathan won. There's no escaping. Everybody's dead.
I mean, there's a chance of studying, but I feel like they would have shown like the head tilt and curiosity or something like that to imply that.
I thought
it seemed full attack mode.
No, it did not.
I thought when it had the submarine in its front pincers, it was tilting its head to examine.
I mean, you see the eye narrowing on Milo, but that's it.
I don't know. With it being operational for over 8,000 years, I doubt it would have much curiosity left for anything entering its area.
Yeah, I mean, it would still be curious in that like everything down there is a ship, right? This is the only thing that's kind of also going down like purposely with like it's its own vessel, so that would warrant curiosity. But
in the era of all the ships graveyard, they're all the wooden ships as you explained. There's no other submarines. This is the first submarine the Leviathan's witnessed.
There's wooden ships, there's metal ships, so there's a huge mix. But there's no submarines that I could tell. So there is a warrant for curiosity, but it doesn't make its appearance at all.
Gotcha. I do like how this whole disaster scene still gives off characters and how the characters are, of Audrey being very much about how the ship runs, Rourke staying calm as the captain to, facilitate when needs to be, Packard just gossiping on the phone and not caring.
Yeah. The old lady is just being nonchalant on the phone. I gotta call you back. We need to evacuate. That effect was kind of funny.
Yeah, she was pretty funny throughout. She sleeps in the nude.
Which is why they all have eye covers.
She likes to sleepwalk. Or she tends to sleepwalk. Nightmare fuel. She was also the last Disney character to smoke on screen.
Oh, wow. I thought you said you only had 10 facts.
Oh, I have a lot more facts. Those were just the opening ones I had. Milo was the first protagonist to wear glasses.
He's bleeding them in. All right.
Wow, this movie did a lot of.
If Milo's the first protagonist to wear glasses, that means Kita's the second, technically.
Well, to try glasses.
Yeah, but I stand by what I said. She wears them to try them on. That makes Kita the second.
I'm literally now going through my head of Disney protagonists before this, and if any are wearing glasses.
All right. Let's see. I love my notes because you can definitely tell in my notes. I'm like, anyways, our characters make it because they have plot armor, and then I just wrote immediately after, oh, never mind, more red shirts are here. Good on them.
Yeah, they made it.
Oh, I guess you're right.
I do like that Rourke gave a eulogy to honor the dead, and then he just like, I like this is more respectable, but because it's like they don't have time to like mourn for too long. They have work to do. But it's still kind of a very, very quickie, like, not lingering on this very long transition to the next thing kind of scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we brought up in the beginning, it's a pretty condensed film.
Yeah.
Kind of went through everything pretty quick. On the little escape pod subs, we get Helga driving it, I guess, piloting it.
Yeah.
And she's using like a steering wheel, but we see her go up, down, sideways, every which way.
Oh, Crimson, that's the gas pedal. Pushing it down makes it go up. Vice versa.
Okay.
Huh?
Yeah.
You lost it.
That's just Sprinks is making up stuff.
I am. She is using a steering wheel.
Yeah.
That's kind of funny.
I mean, there are levers that she's moving every now and then, but
they
not
also
enough to correspond with the movement of her driving.
Oh, they make a lot of equipment down here, or they get a lot of their equipment down here, which is impressive considering how little.
That one big sub.
The one thing Helga is driving has so much in it.
Yeah.
Because what Vinny and Mole are in, barely
2-person transport.
Yeah, there's probably not that much, if anything, in that.
Yeah, maybe some food.
I will say it's a bit convenient that, at least for the model, doesn't mean it's the only one, but the model that Whitmore shows Milo at the beginning, and Milo plays with the like hot air balloon device.
Mm-hmm.
One could think that the model's simply there to show it. Doesn't necessarily mean there's only one in the whole submarine.
Yeah. True. I mean, it showed models of pretty much all the vehicles, did it not?
Yes.
And we know there are multiple versions of a lot of those vehicles.
So for convenience sake, it's not necessarily like, oh, it's lucky that Helga got the one that had that in it for Rourke to get away at the end. It could have been there's one in each of those.
Probably a safe bet.
Yeah, and the rest
could be convenient as Mole's drill, because I'm sure they probably only have one of those.
Possibly.
Could be convenient that it's there, but we don't truly know if there's more than one, I suppose.
Well, I think there could be more than just one. It's just he calls it his drill because it's what he's operating. There's no others at the time, or no surviving ones at the time.
Fair.
It's possible. It could just be like his personal one, like the one that he's spent his time modifying and stuff like that, and there's just other ones in the group that just didn't make it.
Could be. I think it would have a little more character customization to show to the audience in that way, but still, yeah.
Yeah.
In relation to the drill, I do like how Milo's talents in the boiler room came into play.
Yeah.
Even though it kind of diminished what's her face's capabilities.
Audrey.
Yeah.
I mean, Audrey works with hundreds of thousands of agents. He just happens to be an expert on this specific one, you know?
Yeah, the Humec boiler P. I don't think I wrote it down. Did I write it down?
Long name.
Yeah. No,
But she was going to get a part that wasn't required.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, the one on the truck is the earlier model to the one that's at the museum at the Smithsonian. The 13 compared to 14.
Interesting. I have, I guess, a couple funny details that I did like. Helga requires that Vinny, the explosion guy, must be 50 yards away at all times from the oil truck.
Yep. That was pretty comical.
That was nice detail because it tells a story without needing to tell a story. It's a problem they've dealt with before.
Yeah.
And the other one,
probably on the original edition.
Yeah. The other one, Milo playing with the horn on his truck. I think this is Milo's not stupid or childish, so I found it a bit out of character. And I think
it was playing on him being nervous.
I didn't get that vibe.
No, definitely not.
He doesn't know how to drive a truck.
No, they haven't had the conversation yet. Then
he was just playing with a car horn.
He was just playing.
I wouldn't say it was out of character, but it was certainly odd. I think to be fair.
The reason it clashes with the tone. It clashes tonally, given the funeral just happened a minute ago, and they're doing the whole mission thing afterwards. To this was just a little too heavy-handed. The reason I lean out of character is that he's not childish. He's just because it's such a childish action. That's what I take issue with, because he's quirky, but like there's nothing that before this that would even hint at the fact that he would do this.
Okay.
So it's a minor thing that I take a larger issue with.
I like the callback use of Milo, quote unquote, drinking the nitroglycerin, and then Vinny, when they come up to the wall, teasing in a way back to Milo about it, but it also shows like a character bonding of sorts of the characters.
Yeah, they're just harmless fun, you know?
Yeah.
In that sense.
So bad we don't have nitroglycerin, right, Milo?
Also, the nice mole laugh there, Crimson. The use of transitions throughout this whole montage of the wipes and the what's it called? Is it window? I think it was like the two center ones open up, and then a centered circle. All of those would have had to be storyboarded, since it's the use of animation. It would have been really weird, and I guess as a fact, if you knew Crimson, it would be really weird if those were after the fact in editing, if they were put in.
No, I didn't see anything on that.
Because those could affect the use of animation coverage for animating those transitions.
I don't know why you're thinking.
I can't even picture any of those transitions you just mentioned. So
no, they're all over the place in the montage part here.
Yeah, while you're,
it's not just cuts, is what I'm saying. It's not just a scene, next to next to next. They're transitional uses to get them to the next part.
I have kind of a funny thing, Spriggs. Are you talking about the Crimson's Mole Man's laugh?
Yeah.
I think I don't know why, but I just realized what Mole Man actually reminds me of. He reminds me of the Underminer from Incredibles.
A bit, yeah.
He's got a little bit of
the Underminer.
Both mole-like.
You have both mole-like, round and small and chubby, I guess.
Right, or they could be related.
Certainly could be.
Yeah.
When does The Incredibles take place? That was 1960s?
Was it that old? I don't.
Where it takes
Really?
place. I think so.
Well,
60s,
yeah,
70s.
I know it wasn't made in the 60s.
No, I'm just saying, I think it was 60s or 70s is when The Incredibles takes place. So what if Mole's like his father?
That would be funny. I think Rourke is a terrible military commander for letting Milo drive, even knowing that he's doesn't know how to drive.
Yeah, he gave him a chance.
Yeah, that if he were to have him drive, he would have been in the back of the pack, I think. But
Well,
even still, I don't think he would have driven.
I don't think he would have been.
regardless.
I don't think he would have been driving at all because he's their navigator. So he would need to be near the front. But
He's essential personnel. I wouldn't really risk him crashing a car.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want the person with the map to be in the steering seat.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a little weird. I do like, I guess, a lot of the montage traveling shots we have in the tunnels. We can, as you said, we got the nitroglycerin bit, and we also have a few other very, very small moments, like a Mustache Man blowing up a column that took 10,000 years to make.
Half a mile tall.
Yeah. And look, I've made a bridge. It took me less than 10 minutes. Maybe
10
11.
seconds. Maybe 11.
There's a part during the montage where they have to climb up rocks, and they decide not to help Milo up.
Yeah.
I found that weird. Specifically, it was Doc.
Sweets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet. I don't know why he didn't do it, because he's been kind to Milo up to this point anyways.
Yeah. It's weird because literally, like, the scene afterwards is they, like, the campfire scene is coming up soon, quote unquote, where they're all going to talk about their backstories and quote unquote bond a little bit. So yeah.
So that's stood out as not adding
I
up.
think it should have been someone other than Sweet. Because of how Sweet interacted with Milo on their first introduction. I think if it was like, it probably
If it
would
was
have been best
Mole,
if
he
it
would
was
have
Vinny.
held his hand out and then pulled back and laughed at him.
Yeah. It could have been Vinny, could have been Rourke. I think those would have been better. But
Yeah, Sweet was the worst one to do that for.
speaking about the campfire scene, Sweet talks about how he was in college doing gross what was it? Gross anatomy, I think. And then
Yeah.
the line after that, he says, "I'm sewing up Rough Riders on San Juan Hill." So that means Sweet was drafted in the Battle of San Juan Hill of 1898 as field medic.
Yeah, I mean, I think fits his age.
Just another little tad bit of history I had to check.
Yeah. I kind of like that Vinny is the one that goes to help Milo finish setting up his tent. It's a small thing, but it's one of those things where like they express the fact that they've been kind of hard on him.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a nice little, it's a small thing that I think kind of helps pay them off, because they also have the whole like dinner before where they invite Milo to sit with them.
Yeah. They're getting to know him a bit more.
Yeah. I kind of talked to Crimson about this. I don't like that they put most of it in just these two scenes. Like, I would prefer it, I think, spread it out instead of the montage.
Well, as we said at the beginning, if this movie would have definitely benefited with another half hour.
Yeah. for sure. And I think like how I would have preferred this done is a lot of this could have been, instead of all happening at once, I think individual problems could come up, and then Milo tries to help out in each individual problem as they're making their way through the caverns and stuff like that. It'd be an extra 10 minutes or something, I think, if added on. But I think it would have helped with the sudden character development whiplash that we get due to these scenes.
Yeah. Also, a small detail I noticed. The two of you may have, and anyone listening, Mole's pajamas are of the French flag.
I don't notice. I noticed he carried a stuffed mole.
He did.
That's kind of funny.
In these caverns, we get the fire bugs, lightning bugs, I think they called them. Lightning
Literal
flies.
fireflies.
Yes. Kind of a random addition. Why they would be down here, but sure, they're here. Why they don't ignite the people is a question that should be asked.
Oh, why they can
light
melt
everything else on fire?
why they can also melt through metal to set oil on fire? I have no idea, but
Well, they flew into the engine block and into the fuel stuff. You know, car stuff. I don't know. Raising the stakes, the tension. We have to get them moving to Atlantis. The nest, I guess, just arbitrarily falls at one point and lands on the bridge.
It does.
I don't know why it does that. I rewound it to see if like part of the exploding car hit it and knocked it off. It didn't. It just fell.
Gravity just decided, today is the day.
You know, it's a stressful moment. Let's just have it fall now. So no reason for that to have fallen.
All the fireflies have been in there for such a long time that the use of them now departing has made a counterbalance to the structure that has been held for so long that it just could not function anymore under what its original gravity weight was and just fell. That's complete bullshit that I pulled out of my ass, but possibility.
So the lack of weight encumbered it to a degree where it succumbed to the lack of weight instead of too much weight. Like
That's happened
else.
in things before. It's a balancing issue.
Mm-hmm.
It can happen. It's just convenient that it happened.
Yes.
Um,
I'm saying it's possible. I'm not saying it's reasonable.
The cause of it is Milo pointing a flashlight at it, which I guess aggroed them.
Yeah. Yes. I think a bit before this. Because Kita is shifting through one of the bags and finds Milo's picture with his grandfather. I don't know why that wouldn't be in his tent, but it is like on this underneath the drill or whatever.
It's
Do
just
you
in his bag.
Do you think Kita I guess forms some attachment to Milo due to the picture because she also has a dying father figure?
Sure, to some level.
I would say maybe, but at that
I'm not saying it's like full on. I'm in love with him now because of this, but it's something to connect them.
But I don't think she knows that's him at the time. I don't think she knows the photo belongs to him as well at the time. That could be anyone in that photo.
I'm gonna be honest with you. It's a very dead giveaway with the hat that she pulls out, and it's the hat that the grandfather's wearing, and also Milo steps out with his giant fucking circle glasses on.
I think the glasses do help.
So I think she knows who he is in the picture pretty quickly. Because the only detail that we see in her perspective when Milo gets out of the tent is just shadow, except for his spectacles.
Okay. Okay. I'll side with you more because during the montage we do see them tracking them and watching them, so they've been observing on Milo and the whole crew. So it's not just like he came out and just like, oh, how convenient, he's the guy in the photograph and they're both wearing glasses. They've been watching them.
Yeah. She could have also seen him hold his bag throughout the journey and took the opportunity once it was away from him to look through it.
Mm-hmm.
That is
also a possibility. Through the campfire scene, we get a little bit more on a couple of our characters here. Ramirez, her and her sister were supposed to be boys, but now they dominate in the fields that their father wanted them in the first place to do, which is
her sister's going
wrestling or boxing or something,
Yeah.
and then being a mechanic.
Yeah, her sister is going for the weight title next month, and she is going to open a new machine shop when she gets back.
24-0, right?
Vinny wants a flower shop to fix his previous family one.
No. The character thing is, I just want to see these explosions, and then Doc comes over and pretty much pulls on his eye covers, and
Yes.
then he talks about the flower shop.
Good stuff, and they both get called back towards the end.
This is true.
Good.
Yeah.
Milo uses it against them.
Yep.
Evil Milo, manipulative Milo.
Yeah.
A joke, of course.
A small little thing that I think
it'd be weird if anyone was on the side of the mercenaries in this film.
Yeah. One little thing I find for a character not function, when they're leaving in their vehicles from the Fireflies, Cookie's vehicle has a little pole robot as if like a horse or a mule that he's whipping.
That's true. Yeah. It's funny animation.
Give it more of the cowboy character feel, I guess.
I guess. I guess we're lucky they all survived the fall and the crash.
Yes, the named characters anyway.
Yeah.
Well, we don't know if any of the other ones had.
Well, we know.
Yes, there's
we know there are red shirts.
Van that explodes.
Well, I meant from the descent.
We know that red shirts are still alive. They have to be because of the battle that happens, and also they're also there and them in Atlantis. So.
Yeah, the gas mask. Crimson, you touched on earlier how the bubbles would have been a pain in the butt to animate. I'm sure the Fireflies in this scene also were a pain. So much constant movement.
Well, I don't know how many of those were. If those were all 3D assets, I'm pretty sure the bugs were.
Oh.
Yeah, if I had $1 every time the Fireflies would cause an explosion, I'd have $2, which is not a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice.
What else did I have on this? We get the setup of their escape towards the end here. The volcano full of fluffy pumice ash.
Yeah, I don't know how it's gonna help them since they're underneath the ocean, but I'm curious. This is what happens when they pop the roof of that volcano off.
Well, when they did, it showed light and not water.
Yeah, that's a fucking problem.
There's an island there.
Yeah, that's a fucking problem.
Why is that a problem?
Geographically speaking.
Okay, well, I guess that goes into, are there any volcanoes in Iceland? If we thought the closest landmass was Iceland.
We think Atlantis is underneath Iceland.
I'm going with, it's a volcano that when they opened the top, light came in and out water, so it is surfaced.
Yes, but we know that they're underneath the ocean. That's my criticism is that their geography changed, like drastically, what they're underneath.
Of Atlantis. From the beginning shot of Atlantis going under the water to now.
They're underneath the ocean, so yeah. Then the water will be pouring in.
They're underneath the ocean floor surface. We don't necessarily know how much they've traveled through the montage.
You're saying we don't know how high they've climbed up since their descent?
Yes. We know where the ship took, the submarine departed, and then them going up the grease trap, as Milo puts it, of their start, and then the montage takes place of them venturing. But where that goes to the volcano, we don't necessarily know, other than what we're saying is the closest departure or closest land from where they dropped the sub was Iceland, even though they probably left from Washington, D.C., which is where Milo was, to then drop the sub of what's the closest volcano to that area, because over the thousands of years of Atlantis being underwater, tectonic plates could have moved landmass.
The closest. Okay, you're millions of years, Springs, not thousands. Then the issue here is that there are volcanoes that would be there, but they're all thermal vents volcanoes, so it doesn't help them in this
At
in
the
this
base of the
instance.
ocean.
Yeah, which is where they went. So
Well, I'm still going with what is the closest volcano.
I'm telling you, it's a thermal vent because it's probably true.
Well, that's not answering my question though.
You're asking what the nearest volcano is. That it is a thermal vent, most
Okay,
likely.
what
It's
is the
them being at the
closest-
bottom of the ocean.
What is the closest surface above ocean level volcano?
I don't know.
Okay, because what the film is showing is they're near that one. Simply for the fact that when they breach the surface of the volcano's layer, water's not pouring in.
Yeah, and it's
So we got two aspects. We have what they have depicted, and then what is likely. And what is likely that they should still be underwater.
Yes.
Yeah, that's.
I'm siding with Ryder on what should be is correct, but I'm also stating with what's shown in the film, it would be closest surfaced volcano.
Okay.
I was just curious what volcano that would be.
So we agree that the fact that they don't drown immediately is a problem.
Brinks thinks there's an actual volcano surfaced, and that's.
I don't
what
know
we
how
see.
far they traveled under the ocean.
Okay.
Because my problem would go into Atlantis would not be in the location of where it started.
So
that would be there's a problem on either end depending on which one I see.
Okay. So you see a problem.
So it would have been helped if we got to see the open waters, if there was any land mass or if it was just ocean.
I think it would help.
This would severely help.
Crimson, if it was like Journey to the Center of the Earth, where it showed them breaching and they're like in Italy, if it showed that, because all we know is water does not come out. We don't know where they are above that volcano, where it leads to. And that's my question of, if it is the closest volcano that is above sea level, what would that be to their departure of the submarine near Iceland?
I don't know.
Because I would go with the closest. I mean, it could, for all we know, it could be in Hawaii, and they traveled that far underwater during the montage. I think that's way out of line. But I'm just going with what could be the closest, and none of us seem to know the answer of what it could be.
I mean, Ryder has a theory.
I do?
Well, that it's not a surface volcano.
Yeah,
but the movie shows water's not coming in.
The movie can be wrong, Sprinks. It's kind
That's
of
why I'm saying
what the talking
if it's
point
the
is.
side, if it's the side that it is if it's an underwater volcano of the airflow break, which leaning with Ryder, correct, because of the travel distance. That's what it should be. But it doesn't show water pouring in when they breach the surface to escape from, meaning it is a above surface volcano in the film, which would show the time length from their departure of the submarine to the grease trap that Milo discusses or states of the grease trap of Atlantis' entrance, to what area of the closest surface volcano would show the montage time of the start to end. They're both issues, but which issue is the apparent one? And I'm leaning with the one where the surface of the volcano isn't watering, because that's what's in the film.
Oh, at least you're taking an issue with it. I'll take that.
I see issue with both, because the issue with the one in the film is Atlantis isn't that close to a volcano at the beginning of the film.
Let's see.
They're both problems, but I lean to the one where we can see the water's not coming in.
Shoot. See, the travel distance one also introduces, like, in your problem also, with the whole them breaching the surface, essentially. That introduces a travel issue as well. They would have run out of supplies.
More than likely, yes. So, audience, sorry for that ramble. It's either or. You can fight along in the comments the sides of you choosing, or if it's something none of us have tackled yet. I'm sure there's at least a couple of you who go, hey, it's a cartoon. I get that. That's also a valid answer.
I'm looking it up. There's several volcanoes in Iceland. There's 2 on an island right next to Iceland.
Okay. And just to
That seems
clarify
to be
my
it.
knowledge on it, the Rain of Fire is in the Pacific, not Atlantic, correct?
Yes, Ring of Fire is Pacific based.
Okay. So it's probably none of those.
That's not this.
If you're looking at the Westman Islands, Crimson, those are active, so those can't be counted.
Then based off the map I'm looking at, there aren't any nearby volcano islands.
It's still a problem.
This
Either way.
volcano would have to be mainland that we're talking about here, which I don't think is the case. So
Okay.
I think looking at the map of volcanoes near and at Iceland, this is a flaw that isn't getting filled with water.
Okay. Easy as that.
All right, let's see. Lucky everyone survives. Milo got separated, or did the Atlanteans carry him off?
I think he got separated. Which is also weird because he was right next to Audrey when the bridge went down.
Yeah.
So let's go with he was carried.
That helps the
That's
film a
also a
little bit.
Be generous.
Yeah. Wow. It's a minor thing because it benefits of him being knocked out and him waking up to the Atlanteans standing over him. So he could have been carried away after the whole shebang.
Shebang.
So there's room for that one. So okay with that. And we find out the crystals are made of vibranium, which is nice because they can heal him.
Okay. I don't want to be touching on Marvel stuff. That's not how vibranium works.
Vibranium does whatever vibranium wants. Do you not remember those heel beads from Black Panther?
No, I don't remember those heel beads. from
Yeah,
Black Panther.
that's why I explicitly say it's the vibranium of this universe because they use vibranium to heal things. Vibranium's a power source, and vibraniums can be a fucking frisbee that deflects bullets. So
See, that's the version I like.
yeah, that's the one that makes the most sense. I agree. But anyways, so crystals are made of vibranium in this universe.
The plus side, I think that this has to the MCU's stiff is this energy source, at least through the king, is somewhat sentient and like a deity. So
it has.
You could think of it as like god powers instead of it being like an actual natural source.
Yeah,
Natural resource.
it's not a meteorite that fell to.
It's alien.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this energy is provided by a god in this world, presumably, if the king's to be believed.
Or someone as such, yes. I find it funny that
some
Mole's
deity.
whole depiction of being at the base of a dormant volcano and Vinny's still playing with bombs.
he's trying to fix his bomb. And they all stared at him. He was like, "Okay, yeah, you're right. Now it's not the time." It is one of the funny. It is one of the funniest moments in the film, I think.
He's got some of the best jokes.
Yeah. We also, I think, get our first look at Kita here when he's being healed by the crystal. Like properly.
Yes.
She unveils herself and heals him and kind of smirks at him, smiles at him.
And he's mesmerized.
Oh, I think he's in shock.
Mesmerized. I'm sure. Multifaceted.
Both.
Right?
Both is good. It's funny, Crimson. I actually thought you were talking about me.
Oh.
Normally, because
sure, that can work, and you are mesmerized by her.
Normally, because I'm usually the butt of the joke when it comes to pretty girls and whatever we cover. So,
well, since you mention it, she ticked the box.
Yeah, she does.
All right.
Um,
Anything else in this act for you guys? Unless you have more to talk about her intro.
I do not.
I have more to say when they actually start talking. Uh,
Did I cover the snow pocket thing during the
No.
montage?
Mm-mm.
No. In the montage, there's a part where they're like in an area full of snow. Is that possible?
no, but the movie could do what it wants, I guess. It clearly did with the whole ocean underneath volcano underneath the ocean thing. Whatever.
Okay, because I'm curious. I'm like, it would work better if it was ice.
Yeah, I was gonna say there could be ice, but actual snow.
Yeah,
No.
I'm also in the camp of it. If it was ice, I'd have less issue.
Yeah, I guess it slightly helps that it's not snowing, because I think that would be
Wasn't
worse. No, it was just. It was just on the ground.
If it
There
was
no
snowing,
falling
it'd be
snow.
so much worse. How do clouds form underneath the fucking ocean?
Yeah, that was a thing. There was no falling snow. It was just a snow pocket area they were in.
Which means there needed to have been snow to make the snow on the ground.
Yes.
Yes.
We're talking like levels of like 1 to 10 scale here. It's a 1 being really bad and 10 being good. It's sitting at like a
3.5.
it's like it's sitting like a 3.5. If it was actually snowing, it would drop it lower.
Yes. Which is not final ratings, mind you.
No,
It's
that's just
for
this
the single
particular
instance of just
just this particular scene.
The snow gets a 3.5 out of 10. I'm tapped out of the act. Whatever else you got, Ryder.
It also, I guess, to go with the 3.5,
Right.
also shows that they have snow equipment because they're in snow gear.
Yeah,
So they could have.
They're lucky.
Snow at some point.
They specifically
Cold
said
environments.
that Rourke is prepared for anything.
That is
So
true.
I'm willing to accept snow gear as for anything.
I'm willing to assume that they have snow gear tucked away as for an emergency, and that's just the general gear they keep on. But
3.5.
yeah, so that's still bad, but I guess it's okay. Where does the act end? The act ends with just
Her healing.
Milo getting healed.
Just okay. Then yeah, I don't think I have anything to add.
All right, so pretty much from her healing him to when Rourke figures out the crystal chamber riddle.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Got a good
Pretty much
gap
all
of time here.
Atlantis.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So
Good gap.
This advanced civilization is introduced to people with spears and hooks, and the group comes looking for Milo, and they all run away, and Milo chases after them. Then we have a really bad animation error once everyone catches up to Milo.
Oh, what would that be?
So Milo gets to the edge of the cliff, and then it shows the group catching up to him with the drill right behind them. And then it pans out to show what Milo's seeing, which is Atlantis in like the floating waterfall thing. The drill is gone. So is the mountain it came out of, and among other things. And then immediately when it shows them again, everything's right behind him once again.
Didn't notice it, but that's.
Yep, I can totally agree with the drill part. The fact that the mountain's gone, I could say it's just wide lens of the mountain surface face, but then that goes into camera technology in an animated film. So I'll accept the drill.
Still an animation problem. Just disagreeing as to the level of it. Because the mountain is like right behind them. It's so as well as the drill. The drill's like hanging over them. So the fact that it's gone is kind of hilarious. But
my issue. Or not issue, but my question focuses more on the infinite waterfall of Atlantis.
Yep.
Is it like Is it like a?
It works like a big fountain, Springs. So
like a fondue fountain kind of thing. Like
There's a tube at the bottom pushing it through the top.
But is it from the center of Atlantis, or is it from an outward area and there's like small dams keeping the center
I feel like they're
still?
okay. This is
Because otherwise there would be constant.
this is
current.
100% writing for the film.
I'm going because they have fishing spots.
Yeah.
And I would say those fishing spots are in still water, which means that the flow of waterfall is not from that area. So it would not be centered.
Well, I think you're overestimating how strong the
Current
waterfalls are.
I'm 100% writing for the film, but you know how an infinity pool works?
Yes.
Like the waterfalls that work with that. That's how I imagine the waterfall works. It's just on a grand scale. So it's
I
very.
would agree.
There's a
wall up to a point of the waterfall.
Yeah.
Crimson, you got something on it?
I just think we're putting more thought into it than they did.
Okay, Crimson
Oh yeah,
just says
no,
Atlantean
absolutely.
magic.
Well, I think the designers, animators, all that thought it was a cool visual aesthetic that it'd just be flowing water constantly. But they didn't put much thought of where's the water coming from if it's constantly flowing.
I agree,
Especially
but the
if
visual
surrounded by a
aesthetic can
lava
still
moat.
cause a problem, though.
So
I'm sure after
infinite
also,
water
well,
problem.
is it also a problem that there's a lava moat? That after all these years, the water would not have eventually cooled parts to.
Well, in your
No, the lava's miles underground. I mean, it's
I'm not
No,
saying
no.
placement. I'm saying the constant water upon the lava after years.
Well, in our scenario, Springs, of this being Atlantean made, theoretically, no, because all the water is just going back into a system. Like it doesn't form
creating
it doesn't form into a pool. Which yes, I would agree with that. It's still a problem.
I mean, I can understand that the bottom's hot, which is creating steam. But then if it's just being recycled back up, it's not necessarily in contact with lava, which would
Yeah, I mean,
go on to the line that
it
it's not
could-
creating, obsidian or I don't think that's how obsidian's made. But
yeah, it
I'm
could.
just saying the bottom isn't the lava at this point. If it was in contact with the lava at the whole time, the lava would no longer be present.
I'm trying to think if I want to run an experiment now about running lava next to water and see if steam will still make up without the two coming into contact. Because that would be an interesting thing. Because I wonder if lava is hot enough to make water turn into steam without water necessarily coming into contact with it. That would be interesting.
Well, isn't lava like 3,000 degrees?
Like I said, there's definitely a possibility that it
Yeah.
is. I just don't know.
Yeah.
For
Don't know
a movie that's
enough
being
about
for a movie that's playing to being pretty historically accurate to events, it's not being very scientifically accurate.
I'm not going to even go with this being historically accurate.
I'm saying I've brought up events so far that have been matching and working. Not saying entirely, but I'm saying comparing the two.
Oh, you mean the
focus
smaller
far
stuff
more
that
on
you've been
their-
bringing up? Yeah.
Yeah, they
He's
seem to
bringing
be
up
focused far more
timelines,
on historical
I think.
events that have been connected and work compared to scientific. Then again, the scientific of Atlanteans with the crystal, it's made up. It's fictional. I get it. Okay, cartoon.
Let's see. So one of my biggest issues with this movie, because it's a pretty core component, is how the heck they forgot their own language.
Yeah, that's a fucking issue. It's also they're also very lucky that they speak English too, and French, and
Yeah,
and other
it's a weird
dialects.
dialect.
Yeah, exactly.
dialect.
I literally he was like, if you could add this, and this, you might get the Atlantic. It's like their root dialect. It's like a root dialect, like the language of Babylon. I rolled my fucking eyes.
We could say they tried.
They did try. They did not succeed.
There's no universal translators.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said.
I appreciate the attempt of try over they just speak English with no answer.
That is true.
Oh,
There's an attempt made because there are so many things out there. I can't think of an example off the top of my head where there's a discussion between characters and they're both speaking English, and you're like, why? And it could be just use of audience for the audience sake. At least this is trying to give that in the film of an example.
We're Ryder, it sounded like you thought of something.
I did, but it's just I just made the connection. So sorry, Sprinks. So you gave them credit for this, for them trying this, right? But you didn't give credit to Mr. and Mrs. Smith where they tried to explain away the police thing.
Oh man, what a callback!
Now,
Yes. Yes, unfortunately, I can't go off the top of my memory to recall my exact wordings of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, which please bring it up in the recap if you're curious.
They only brought it up
But
once.
you know what, Ryder? Yeah, I'll stand firmly. The police thing's more of a problem than this dialect conversation of English right now in Atlantis.
Whoa.
Ooh, I don't. Okay, all right. 10,000.
Write that down.
I
Write
am
that
the
down.
10th
That's recap.
doctor. I am the 10th doctor. You not Doctor Who doctor. I'm the dentist. I'm the 10th dentist. Okay, 9 out of 10 dentists recommend. I'm the 10th.
I'm sorry. I made the connection, Springs.
I will be my difference.
Okay. It was a little funny. I'm sorry. I made. Okay.
Back to the initial.
Yeah.
How did they forget their language?
I have no fucking idea.
It's not like it was lost through the generations. Then maybe sure.
All their linguists
Theoretically possible, but they lived. These are the same people from 8,000 years ago.
Yeah, and that's the main issue I have with that as well. They could. They're the same. If they weren't the same people, it wouldn't be a problem. But they are the same people.
It also goes into over all this years, have they never written anything else?
Kita said
they can't read.
The moment the event happened is when they lost their language. So, I don't know.
Could have been done by the crystal then, not necessarily individual.
Why?
I don't know. I'm just if she says from that event, then it's caused by the crystal. Why would the crystal remove it from them? Who knows? I don't.
There's zero reason for it. That was their explanation. Was that event caused them to lose it?
Which, you know what? It could work if these weren't the same people. It's the fact that it's the same people is where it gives it the biggest pitfall of a problem. Because if it's not the same people, you could assume that things were just lost culturally. That would make sense.
Yeah. She's bringing up how their culture's dying as time goes by, like waves smashing against a rock. And I don't get how at this point.
One thing Yeah, sorry. Go on.
I was just going to reiterate, so go ahead.
One thing I did like, without having to turn on subtitles on, you could still pick up the subtext of the Milo's conversation with Kita, their first one, when they're speaking Atlantean to each other. You can tell he's struggling, but you can still catch the gist of like what they're trying to say to each other.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually they work their way to French, and then Kita's I guess points went up with me when she just fucking punched Mole in the face.
Ooh, I like her.
Pretty much, yeah.
Mole probably said something pretty scandalous.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I'm sure.
Classic, by the way, I guess stereotype trope of the bad guy saying we come in peace.
Yeah,
guess.
technically, yeah. We also get a bit of note as well. Doc and Audrey like her because she punched the old man. It's funny you brought up translators, Crimson. Here's my note for when they started speaking English. Having a root language like Babel doesn't mean you have Star Trek translators.
Yeah, but he's professional. He figured it out. She figured it out. It's okay now. We get a little bit of Helga guess, character stuff here when she points out to Rourke that there weren't supposed to be people here, showing that she cares a little bit.
Yeah, she's not completely
Smidgen.
irredeemable. Just
Not that
mostly
it really
irredeemable.
helps her later, but that's pretty much her only hint of humanity.
Yeah. So she's not completely irredeemable, just mostly irredeemable.
Would this go into a secret debriefing of a mission that Milo was not a part of?
Oh yeah, very
Yeah,
clearly.
they're all in on it, so
Okay.
yeah.
And I like that Rourke kind of just works past it. It's like, nope, changes nothing.
I like how the conversation between the father, chief leader of Leonard Nimoy, and Rourke is focused solely on his weapon, on his gun. It's not eye to eye.
Yeah, he's
Which
thinking
also brings up
about
the
it.
problem of how the king saw the gun in the first place. He's blind.
Magic. Crystal magic.
Yeah, I have no
Yeah.
idea.
He's blind. He couldn't see it. That's a problem.
The guards could have informed him before
Let's
they
see.
read.
Do the guards even know
They
what a
don't
gun
even know
is?
what a gun is. Yeah.
I don't know.
I find it funny that their immediate thing is, you must see our leader, and then my response in my notes, I could see why your civilization collapsed. Their
Oh, yeah.
first instinct is to bring a bunch of newcomers with strange technologies to meet their king. It's not a smart decision.
But they were a successful empire. So they abused their deity thing.
I have a question of when they volunteer Milo to go, get answers out of Kita, and Kita jumps Milo and reuses his words. Is that convenience sake, or does she actually overhear him talking to himself and reuse it on him?
Oh, she
used
definitely
it.
heard him and fucked with him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Were you thinking that was convenient?
It could be a sense of convenience, yeah.
Not the way they played it off, no.
Let's see. I do like the meeting with the king. I like that Milo's trying to be respectful a little bit. He's the only one of the surface dwellers that bows.
Oh yeah. Didn't really notice that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he tells Rourke to kind of back down and
yeah, he's
stuff.
like, they're both him and Keita are kind of trying to, their leaders aren't pleased with the situation that's happening, and they both have their own vision, I guess, of how things are going to turn out. And I think Keita and Milo do a pretty decent job of trying to be like the go-between for the two of them in this small scene.
Let's see. Later, I'll popcorn somewhere else. When Milo finds out Kita's approximate age, 8,500 to 8,800 years old, looking good.
It's a joke they kind of not stolen, but it's similar to the joke in Hotel Transylvania, I think. When Mavis gives her age of like 117 or something.
I think it's borderline trope. Whenever you have a like ancient character that looks young, it's usually commented on their appearance like that.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. With that, it's being when it's a trope, it's usually brought up, and they usually crack a joke in that vein. So
I don't know if it's so much of an error, but something to point out that when they arrive to speak with the leader, Kita is talking Atlantean to her father, and then when they leave, she's just speaking English.
Oh, that's just for us.
For audience, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I agree. It would be a problem. But when things like this happen in movies, you can assume that they're just talking in their native language, whichever's easier for them, more or less.
Okay.
Yeah, because they showed it earlier just to show that they don't trust the outsiders with what they're saying. But in private, they have no reason to speak English. So makes sense. That way.
Let's see.
Kita trying to operate the fish vehicle. Like, try this, that, this, and that, and then Miles like, well, did you try this and that? No, I didn't. Okay.
I'm like,
she says she tried everything, then I think she tried that because it wasn't very complicated.
8,000 years. I'm not gonna believe it for a single fucking second.
None of the people, all of them have those crystals. These vehicles are lying around everywhere.
Look, there's. All right, I'm gonna compare it to something that I think is slightly better. It's still a problem, but I do think it's better than this. I'm gonna compare this to something in Ready Player One, the race scene. I have a hard time believing that in a community of thousands of gamers that no one tried to go backwards for this race to unlock the fucking key.
100%.
That's a problem, right? But this is a little worse than that in that they've had 10,000 years to sit on this fucking technology, while the gamer community, presumably in Ready Player One universe, had maybe 20 to 50 years to figure shit out, or if
millions doing it.
Yeah, so there's a disparity here. I do think Ready Player One comes out on the better end, but just kind of pulling it out here, this is 10,000 years. I'm not going to believe that a bunch of Atlanteans weren't trying this constantly. It's just.
Well, and the fact that they forgot it in the first place. Because that doesn't even have to be involved with the language being forgotten. They could just know how to operate it.
Yeah, like that's different in the language. It's how often do you have your steering wheel of a car with directions of how to turn your car on your steering wheel, more or less?
That's true as well. Funny.
Yeah. I mean, like, it says something about the Atlanteans. I mean, I get it, redundancy. And they were widely used, so I mean, make it easy for anyone, I guess, to use them, but it's still a bit of a problem. Yeah.
All right. If anyone wants my thoughts on Ready Player One, we cover Ready Player One, and I share them there.
Okay. Without the deep talk, do you agree or disagree with his assessment of that?
As of right now in my head, I agree that Ready Player One's better. I need to do more history and redoing if we are to cover Ready Player One on the time space of when the 8 came out, the massive Gunters who are actually present and usage, and what was it to... There was some line Parzival says of like how the race can go. It's not like you can do it any single time whenever you wish. It's certain time. So try to calculate all that together, which unfortunately I'm not doing right now because we're doing Atlantis. But what you were saying with the car thing just reminded me of, push the button on the handle. Okay, what do I do now? Open the fucking door.
Chris is not going to get that joke.
Not for a while. That's for your audience members who do know. Hey. I will cut to the part where Cookie lifts his shirt to show his tattoo of all 38 states. I looked it up. That means his tattoo would have gotten his tattoo before 1889 when the Dakotas joined.
He's old enough though.
Between 1877 and 89. Yep.
He is old enough to have gotten it during that time period, so totally okay with that.
The huge amount of breath they had to hold for that swimming sequence to get to the normals.
That's actually what I wrote down, is the Atlanteans being surrounded by water after all these years have no devices to assist them with breathing underwater.
What a great advanced civilization that we have here.
Well, they're degrading, as she said. They're not progressing.
So I will say I really do like Kita's scenes with Milo. The character stuff, great. The world building stuff, whew, headache.
Atlanteans are like lemmings. Sad.
Kind of. I think the best, because I commented on the blue lighting in this earlier. My favorite use of it is when they're in that air pocket, and then you just get the blue from the necklace.
I would probably agree.
Whole bit. I really like how that looked.
I would agree. I really liked it as well.
I like the use of emotion that they have on Milo. From every time he's like discussing everything, he's been very active in body language, and energetic. And this is the only part where it's just focused on his face.
Yeah, and her expressions too, reacting to him. They do a really good job of just like capturing the emotions that they're both feeling.
Sprinks, how would you feel if I told you that Jim Carrey was in talks to play Milo?
It would help the mannerisms of his whole body language. It would fit.
I can't picture the voice at all.
I could see it. I think Michael J. Fox is more of a youthful voice to be used.
Yeah. Jim Carrey could put on a voice too. He's a talented actor.
Also, I've heard rumor that Jim Carrey was one of the first to voice Prince Eric for The Little Mermaid in the original.
Not a
So
very
another Disney
macho voice
expert.
I would go for. But I can't even picture Eric's voice now. It's been so long.
I'm like thinking of Jim Carrey animated film voices. He did Horton in Horton Hears a Who. And he did his take on Christmas Carol. So those two come to mind. Then again, the Christmas Carol one was, motion rigged and everything, so it looks just like him, pretty much. Well, I mean, old man, but still him.
The 38 States bit, the little market area they were standing at. There was a sign, like a food stand, that said "Eat fish." That's what it translated to.
Oh, that's
here you go.
Kind of funny.
I guess they can't. How do you run a society without writing anything anymore?
You can't.
It doesn't make any sense. How do they mark the prices down for their merchandise? I mean,
They don't.
Write their history. Nothing.
You know, maybe here's the thing: they all forgot the language, right? But since they all lived in that era, they just bartered with the same shit.
Reuse the same tags.
Yeah.
Something I find weird, and I don't know if either of you two, when Milo and Kita are going to like have dinner, I guess Milo just grabs a kid.
Yeah, I wrote that down. How weird.
The kid just runs up behind him and grabs him, and then he picks them up.
No, just two kids ran by him, and he just grabs him.
Two kids are trying to go home, and Milo just grabs a kid and puts him up on his shoulders. It's like so uncomfortable.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but it was weird.
It's definitely weird, but I wouldn't go so far. One of the things I do like about it is that we get Milo's perspective on his the rest of his crewmates, at least with regarding to Vinny, Sweet, and Audrey.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Which is neat. I like it. And you also get a bit about Mole Man too when they're all eating together in the hut.
The pet. I wish we had more of Mole in this. Not necessarily like backstory, because they intentionally leave that vague with a joke. But you
mean like another gimmick?
He has a very small role in this. And he doesn't pop up that much.
It'd be I don't know what I would do with him. I'd probably relegate him to a similar role, even in an extended version of this film.
Yeah, I think like all of the crew members kind of have equal time. I think the one with the least amount of time is Sweet.
No, he has that whole one-on-one with Milo about the king and stuff. In the campfire. No, Sweet. I think he's got some of the most out of those people.
I think they're all, I guess, just even.
Cookie. He's got the least.
Cookie might have the least. I mean, stuff. I don't know. And I'm not counting Rourke.
No. Did I say something right?
No, I'm looking through my notes right now.
Oh. So the mural depicting what happened would have been made after the event, right? wasn't a prophecy. They never say prophecy, do they?
No, they don't. But I also wrote that down on my notes. I'm like, is it a prophecy? So they knew it was coming? Did they create the mural afterwards?
They never imply prophecy.
Well,
They never
let's
say
go.
anything regarding that.
This goes into the factor of which one is worse and which one's better. I'll go with the line of prophecy since they don't know how to write anymore.
Yeah,
And they
prophecy.
forgot it as soon as the event occurred.
Yeah, prophecy would make it slightly better. It prevents a contradiction later with the king owning up to the fact that he was the one who caused it. But yeah, that one, I guess, because if it's after, they could just have forgotten the language after they did that. It's still a problem.
Yeah, that's no good. That mural bit's no good.
So
and that's the only place in the whole city that depicts the events of that event as well.
Yeah. So funny thing about how water works. Erosion. I don't think that would be there anymore, especially since it's painted and colored.
Yeah, paint would be gone.
The carved stone would take longer, but it would not be clear.
It was only nearly 9,000 years. Give it a break. No, I agree. I guess the only thing we could kind of be generous on is we don't know how long that was under the water.
The power of the crystal conserved it.
Yeah.
Well, we know, thanks to Black Panther 2, how another society underwater functions off vibranium, so it could work. You might be onto something there, Spriggs.
Could be. I have not seen Black Panther 2 as of this recording, so
Okay.
could be.
I'll keep the rest of it. Well, you could tell by the trailer, so it's like not really spoilers.
Yeah, I know the character in Black Panther 2. I'll go with. I don't know if it's an animation error or effect used that when Rourke shows the page he tore out of the book, that the back of it is blank.
Animation error.
Because it's close enough that when he turns it, it would, if there is something on the back, we'd see it. Other than the part later when he's like crumpled in his hands, both sides are just kind of a blank color. So it doesn't need like the effect of like having the actual torn page written crystal thing shown with the detail of how far away it is. But when he holds it up to Milo and then turns it, it's blank on the back.
Okay, now I know what you're talking about. I was confused. Yeah, there would have been stuff on both sides, I think.
Especially since when Milo's in the book saying where
It was
the
in the
missing
middle of the
page
book.
is, it would,
Yeah. One of the things I do like is that once Milo sees everyone gathered around with their guns and shit after the swimming stuff is over, I think he's playing dumb, or he's in denial. You know, when he first.
I think he's more in denial. I don't think he was playing dumb.
I think he's in denial since he calls himself an idiot.
Yeah, well, that's him like just coming to terms with it, right? So like I was kind of in the middle of him being in denial and him being just playing dumb for the sake of it at that point, because he suspected and they just confirmed his suspicions.
I don't know how they found him there.
Lucky.
They could have asked around.
They could have just waited. Like, oh guys, it'll be cool if he just comes out of the water and we're all standing here like we're the fucking Revengers and.
I mean, probably, yeah, they just waited for him. But I'm sure they asked other Atlanteans around where Milo and Keto have been, and they're like, "Oh, they went down that way." And then they would have seen Milo's, pants on the ground.
That was a funny scene. What are you doing? You can swim, can't you? Yeah. Something like that. You know me, Mr. Misquote all the time.
Yep.
But funny. Borderline fan surfacey, I think. Maybe a little much, but
it works. She's going for a swim, so it works in context. Yeah. Once you get fan service just for the sake of fan service, it's problematic. But fan service within context is usually okay. So then they blow up the doors to the king's room.
Dramatic effect.
Dramatic effect. Mustache Man is happy he got to use his explosions once again.
How do you guys feel about how Rourke solved it?
Lucky.
It was well done, or
Lucky he
Not
sat down in a
well
place
done,
to see it.
but I think it's
but
fine.
It works. It's just, yeah. I'm kind of with Sprinks. It's kind of in the mediocre thing. I would prefer there to be a little bit more.
It does somewhat make sense that, he's kind of taken lead, over the whole Atlantis, so he did put himself in the throne to kind of show himself in charge, and then from the throne's perspective, it shows the shape.
Yeah.
So the way it matches up works for me.
yeah, it's pretty lucky. But with what we see of his character, he does seem like the type of guy that if he's overthrowing anybody, he will take their seat just to mock him, take the position. So I think it works.
Yeah. At this point, I had started counting Helga's fucking gun flip flourishes. She has done at this point, I think, like 4 or 5. Once we reach to this scene in the throne room.
Flare.
It's cool. Looks cool.
We also skipped over the name. We also skipped over the mercenary. I prefer the term adventure capitalist.
Mm-hmm.
Um.
So I guess we have to continue.
I was gonna say, what a dark take on the Indiana Jones thing of it belongs in a museum, and these guys make the case that they do this to get things into a museum.
Yes.
What a twist!
Pretty much. Darn, I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh, well.
Oh, Crimson, look at your notes.
It wasn't on the notes. It was something else. Anything else in this act?
I do have, I guess, one more thing. You can see in the background that Doc, Vinny, and Audrey don't like Rourke's action when he sits down on the throne. You can actually, there's a brief shot of them in the animation. You can actually see the dislike on their faces. So already there's build up to their turning.
Yep. Yeah. All right. That's all I got for the act. Spricks.
That's all I have.
Sweet.
All right. Last act is entering the chamber to the end. The fun stuff.
The fun stuff. Where the does anyone know who made the music?
Ah,
Or
shoot.
Crimson, you did?
I did know.
Because it
I didn't
reminds
write
me of.
You know who it is.
Oh, it's who I think it is?
Well, I know you know who it is. I don't know if it's who you're thinking.
Okay. Because it reminds me of the. Oh, gosh. There's a song in Deadpool 2 when the prison transport breaks. They all crash and Juggernaut gets out. I think it plays then.
James Newton Howard.
Okay, James Newton Howard's the composer, but I don't think that's what I'm thinking of. Talk amongst yourselves. I'll look for it.
Sure.
Okay, so they go into the chamber pit below, and we learn that there's are the faces of Atlantis' previous kings.
Yes.
And if Atlanteans can live to be 10,000 years old, god damn, well, more than that, the fact that there's so few, I guess, makes sense.
Yeah. And I guess there's also the fact that we don't know how many generations they've had access to this crystal, or this power source.
Yeah.
Because if they're all... Because Kita's father... Well, he's probably
Well, how long
80
does a
here?
generation last?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to calculate. It's probably around 80, you'd say, right here?
Yeah.
Probably safe bet.
And
She was
in
a child. Now she's probably in mid-20s.
looks to
maybe?
be mid-20s. Okay, so every 5,000 years.
Every 20 years is 1,000 years, right? Is that what
Yeah,
that's coming
so
to?
boiling it down a little further, I would go as far as saying every 10 years is probably equates to about 5,000 years. So
Maybe he's the first king to have access to it.
maybe.
Hence
So
the first one to abuse its power. Because
maybe.
you think most kings would abuse it?
Yeah. Or at least they would have tested it around.
Yeah.
All right. So if I'm going to use
Completely hypothetical.
if
but
if I'm going
kinda
with
makes
if
sense.
I'm going with my theory, that would make the king 40,000 years old.
If he had it from being a child, yeah.
No. Well,
Access to the
crystals.
crystals.
What you're saying is the crystals are what gave them the long life.
Yeah, they said that gives them the longevity.
Okay. If he is if the crystals were found before him, which I think they were just because of the faces on the past kings that are already like on the crystal,
Mm-hmm.
I'd say each king could live to be about 40,000 years, roughly.
Man, this civilization was
Well-
around since the dinosaurs.
I mean,
That wouldn't be that far back, but
They have
far,
they
though.
have the
This
shield to
also-
survive the
Ice
meteor attack.
Age.
it could be not necessarily death. It could just be passed on.
What are you talking about?
If you're talking about I'm sorry, I'm coming into the mid of the conversation because I was looking up the thing I was talking about. So you're talking about the stone faces?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
The past kings.
Yeah, the past ones. They're not. Nothing really shows that they are from the death that they're made of the past. It could be passed down to the next one of like stepping down.
And that's something kings don't really do.
The only thing that takes issue with that is Sprinks is in the last shot we have, one of the last shots we have of Kita and
Of
Milo is they're
Milo and
carving
Kita
a new
is-
one. Yeah.
because he's dead.
Yeah.
I'm saying it's because of we see him a lot. We don't know if he's the king when Atlantis went down, but he is. Oh, we do know he is the king.
Because the mom was the queen, so he would have to be the king.
Okay, so he's been the king the entire time,
Yeah.
Yes.
and he didn't step down.
Kings don't typically do that.
Then
They usually
yeah,
stay till they
dinosaurs.
die.
Dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. It'd probably be Ice Age.
There's one thing that's odd to me then, and I don't know if it's covered at all. When Atlantis goes down, kids don't have white hair. Like people have colored hair and different forms of hair. When Atlantis goes down to now, everyone has white hair. Every child has white hair.
It could be prolonged effects of the crystal, but that kind of goes back to what Ryder and I were theorizing on how long they've had access to this power source.
Okay.
If we go with the route, which is the most likely route, that all the previous kings had access to this crystal, then yeah, they should always have white hair. That shouldn't have just been after.
I'm gonna
the
assume that's an animation error. I mean, it would make the most sense. It's just a small detail they overlooked to get through the
Could be.
opening.
Then again,
Yeah,
they
possible.
haven't used. Was the instance of Atlantis going under with the shield and everything the first time that was used because of the water? To take.
It was
a
definitely
sacrifice
it was
of the
definitely
white-
it was definitely their first time of trying to use it for malicious means.
Okay, so could the white hair just be a side effect of that action?
Theoretically,
Theoretically,
I suppose.
it's softcore magic system. It doesn't really behoove us to kind of figure it out.
Well, that way it plays in of not being a.
It would line
animation
up with the
error.
event, so I guess with what we have, that is a reasonable thing to
It's a reasonable assumption.
conclude.
Sure.
By the way, what I looked up was it sounds like Enya. That's who I was trying to
Oh.
find.
Really?
That's
I didn't get that vibe.
the subtle of like going across the water, like that type of not the vocal, but that type of music.
I didn't get that vibe. Granted, I've only listened to a couple of her songs.
I think my favorite animation is of Kita after she fuses with the crystal and she has that like spirit kind
It's so
of
cool.
form. Looks
Possessed Kita.
awesome. It was so it looks so fucking cool. And also the water just turning to ice and then how it like doesn't touch her pretty much as everything's falling around her. Really cool.
Pretty
Love
much
that.
everything in the chamber is cool. I always thought it looked awesome.
I agree.
Why they went aggro because a rock hit the water, I don't know.
Because it disturbed the peace.
Yeah, I guess. Also, I do like that possessed Kita talks to Milo and Atlantean, telling him that everything will be okay.
Yes, which only does that pop up without subtitles?
I don't know.
Because I watched it with subtitles, which translated it.
Yeah, I turned on subtitles for the initial translation scene when they were first talking, and it just says speaking Atlantean, and I just left them on at that point. And actually, you know what? I did turn my. No, you're right. I actually remember fiddling with my subtitles and turning them off. That does come up without subtitles on. So it is something for us to know as an audience that Milo knows that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Which I think is a really neat detail.
Something. I guess all we can really say is it's the gods' choices. So who's to say? But why she can return when the mom can't, and why she became a physical energy source when the mom just got sucked into it in the sky.
Well, the mom got sucked into it, and she's the one that activated the shield and saved Atlantis and brought them under the sea.
Yeah, this instance, the shields weren't activated. They
Yes.
just took a host.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lucky, yes. I don't know. It's the idea of prolonged use being what causes it, right? That's what the king says.
The crystal provides prolonged life. Yeah.
No. The prolonged fusion is what. If they're in there long enough, they become
longer
one
you're
with it.
together, they'll be stuck. Yeah.
Yeah. So lucky, but also we don't know how long the queen was stuck in there.
I mean, she came back out with the bracelet, so
I guess we don't know how long she held the shield up underground.
Yeah,
I suppose.
while they were sinking back beneath the ocean. So there is
she could have been holding that for years, for all we know.
Yeah, so there is room potentially for it, but we don't know.
All right, that's enough for me, I suppose. I guess that still doesn't answer why she doesn't turn into like an energy person. She just gets sucked up into the orb. So Kita turns into an energy person that can walk around and do stuff while mom just flew away.
It's just
well,
that's true. It's a parallel. It's intended to be a parallel to what happens at the end of this film, right? So the star is above Atlantis, and she's sucked into the star above Atlantis. She was just in there holding her position, more or less, because apparently they might have to be in a specific place in order to activate the shield wall, which is kind of what we see in this with the whole rune circle that they're standing on. I guess I don't know.
How long was the mom up there to hold the shield in place in order for the water to finally leave enough world for the shields to come down so they wouldn't drown?
We don't know that. That could be hundreds of years.
Yeah,
we don't know,
because that could have just, that's the reason why she never came back, because that absorbed her entity.
Yeah, that I'm okay with now after our discussions. I just don't know why she didn't get a physical energy body like Kita did. That's kind of what I'm stuck on now.
Because I think the force field was used.
We don't really see the physical body. I think it's meant to just be a reveal here. Like I genuinely, she could have gotten a energy form body, but just stayed with the heart and until it was too late. We don't know though because that's not shown.
Okay. I'll leave it at that then.
Something that is shown that I saw that is both kind of interesting because right you touched on that the water freezes a platform below her. Is that what you said?
Well, she either freezes the platform or it she just turns the water to like the glossy surface.
It's neither.
She's kind of pushing the water down like a sphere, right?
Yes, it's a force field sphere because as she's walking forward, one of the heads that falls on her left, while she walks by it, the water moves away from the face.
Yeah, I knew it was a sphere.
Okay, it's just not. She's technically walking on air.
Okay.
While she's walking forward.
Works for me. It's the same.
Yeah. The thing that's weird to me though is that this force field can protect against water that's hitting her, but not from metal cages that she's being put into.
Well, she voluntarily goes into the metal cage.
That's what we have to assume because they just cut to her being captured.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
which I didn't like.
Yeah, I agree, but she's just it's just that was voluntary choice because that's the only thing that makes sense as to how we get there.
I'm kind of okay. I'm thinking, what if she just walked to the center of town, which she kind of did, and just stood still, and they built it around her?
Well, then why wouldn't she just activate her force field thing, or whatever
I
her
don't know.
purpose
that was my thing of the force field. Was the I don't know.
Because the kings said she has been chosen, so she has purpose. We end up seeing it's for the force field, but that was before the whole volcano stuff happened.
Yeah. Kind of back in the chamber, another detail is that Helga looks really uncomfortable when Kita is like praying.
Mm-hmm.
So a little more on the gang turning, even though Helga doesn't really turn.
And she also says she's creeped out by the place and wants to leave.
Yeah, which also adds more to that.
How about a little bit of a popcorn? Ryder, I want to hear your thoughts on the battle.
Okay, let me skip ahead.
You said you got quite a lot on it.
I did. So, starting with the howitzer that they shot up to destroy the top of the volcano. I'm gonna be honest. Aiming artillery straight up doesn't go that far, especially in 1914. So that's one. Springs, you said you had something about the planes.
I did.
Why don't you take with that? Because I didn't research it because I didn't need to, but this is your bit, so go.
Where do I have that written down? Because the planes are using aerial weaponry, which was first invented in June 7th, 1912, they are likely a Wright Model B plane.
All right.
That's what I have written down.
My addition to that is they are not this maneuverable. Trust me, the forces fighting in World War I wish they had stuff that was this maneuverable. I don't know why they didn't shoot the hot air balloon to begin with. It's kind of dumb they don't really open with that, considering that it works once they do. It seems like a very easy target. It's convenient they learn that the Atlantean vehicles can shoot weapons. They learn by mistake and they just pass it along. It's just a small thing, but it's okay.
Well, the way they fire is the same way they turn on.
Yeah, that's yeah. So lucky that it works that way.
It's weird.
I don't know how they steer anymore.
That's true. That makes no sense.
You know what it does? It senses their intent. It just. I don't know why Milo jumped off his hover bike as he was going to ram it through a balloon. Because the balloon wouldn't have been able to do anything to stop his hover bike, but he jumps off like it's going to destroy the bike. Which the bike gets
could've been-
destroyed because he jumped off of it.
It could have been helium and exploded,
Which it doesn't. Just deflates.
which doesn't. But I don't know if he knew that.
They could have found out if they shot at it.
True.
uh,
But if they thought it would blow up, would they fear that Kita would die?
I don't think so.
Trying to play devil's
no,
advocate.
I don't think so.
No, I mean, even Audrey like trying to saw the chains, it would have just dropped it. They weren't attaching it to what
hover
Swing was
bike.
driving. Yeah.
Well, there's the soft pumice ash at the bottom, as established by Mole when they fell.
So
Yeah.
then that also adds more to why
That's how Helga made it.
yeah, apparently.
Yep. Yeah. Uh-huh.
So Helga survives a fall. Also another thing. Let's see what else. The machine guns were accurate. I did appreciate that. Most of the guns were accurate. I didn't get to hear any M1 Grand pings, but I did get to hear the cocking of their rifles, which was nice. Rourke kind of teleports around the helium balloon to get a fire axe and just reappear on top of the fucking the cage that's hanging by chains.
Okay, sure. Let's see that.
Lucky that the glass that Milo grabs is like magic infused, turns him into crystal or whatever.
Scary.
Yeah, it was scary. What doesn't work, however, is Milo apparently weighs more than whatever mass that Rourke is, because when Milo grabs Milo hoists him up into a helicopter blade to kill him. Which I don't believe for a second. Milo's not that heavy. Let's see.
I didn't catch that. Yeah,
That I agree with. Yeah.
It's pretty bad.
That's how Rourke dies. Milo outweighs him.
I guess while you're still perusing, they had a planned sequel. There is a sequel, but it's not a true sequel, because they had a show planned.
I've seen the sequel. Yikes.
Yeah, they had a show, and the 3 stories in that is the first 3 episodes of the show. The planned sequel was going to be, spoiler to anyone who wants to find out a sequel that never happened, that Helga was going to return as the villain. She was going to be a masked antagonist to the city, and it was going to be revealed that it was her, and she was going to be cybernetically enhanced. It's going to be like a cyborg.
To which my joke was, Bucky?
Yeah. Interesting.
Good thing I think they didn't do that, because that's out there.
Could it work? Sure. Would they be able to make it work? Doubt it.
I don't know what her motivation would be at this point. So it's not like the Atlanteans wronged her. Rourke did. So weird.
Yeah. Let's see. What else? Milo lost his legs to the lava.
Yeah. Fair enough. They all died a couple times in this movie.
Yeah, they all died a lot in this scene, especially. I don't know if Helga's flare gun reaches the balloon. I don't know if it's got the strength to do that, but good on you, I guess. Swinging and going for the head, I guess.
I think it's a little more not necessarily on the range, but the accuracy.
That's another thing. We also know that
the strength that would have to puncture it.
Yeah. I do like her quick reaction time to Rourke throwing her off, her swinging herself back on to fucking hit him in the head.
Yeah.
A couple times. It was nice, a little satisfying. Her gun at that point has been reloaded, so I don't know why she didn't take it out, aim it at Rourke, or just take it out and shoot the balloon. Like, fuck you.
We had a deal. Should have gotten it in writing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the point where Rourke just went crazy.
Yeah.
That's where he turned into a
Power-hungry.
cartoon villain for sure.
Yeah. Real power hungry. There are 2 things I want to touch on a little of when everyone's leaving with Kita and leave Milo behind. Milo touches on Audrey being able to use the money for what she liked, and same with Vinny, and they are the first two to return back to Milo because he got under their skin.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
also, they're also the other two on display next to Doc. First on the reports in the Whitmer's mentioned.
Yes.
So neat. A nice
And
through
the
line.
second thing is Milo says he isn't doing the smart thing but the right thing, and I think this is to go against Rourke earlier telling Milo to do the smart thing.
Yeah.
Sure.
When
Unlike his
he's walking off
grandfather.
after his talk with Doc.
Well, no, that's where he says it, but earlier when Rourke says, don't do the smart thing, unlike your grandfather, and then Milo
The
says, I'm
museum
not.
bit.
Yeah, and then Milo says, I'm not doing the smart thing, which would be, he's not going with what Rourke would say. So I think the yin yang to that is complementary.
I'm sure you like the P.T. Barnum reference.
After we've covered Greatest Showman,
Yeah.
stands out a little more.
I
As a child, being 5 years old, hadn't a clue.
Yeah,
who that was.
I didn't. I know it's a reference to The Greatest Showman or like the character P.T. Barnum, but I didn't understand why he made the reference. So I need
I
that
looked
explained.
it up because I wasn't sure what it was. Do you know what it is, Springs?
I'm taking it, it's like don't work with circus members
No.
or
No, it's in reference to a quote from B.T. Barnum. There's a sucker born every minute. Oh, that's what he's implying with that line.
Oh, interesting.
They're suckers for not taking up the opportunity. Which I didn't know B.T. Barnum coined that term. Oh, there you go.
Good on you, PT.
I don't think he said it in the movie.
I don't believe he does either.
No, The Greatest
I don't
Showman. In this film,
Yeah.
it works it. But yeah. I guess a question I have, are tunas sporty?
No, I would have thought like a marlin or something. A freaking tuna?
I'm thinking like a
They're
barracuda.
fast. Maybe sporty because tuna are like some of the fastest fish in the ocean. That may be what he's implying.
Possibly.
But they're kind of like a fat-looking fish, which you wouldn't really think with sports vehicles. You'd think slim.
I have a similarity I caught, and I don't know if this was intentional use, because I know when it comes to hand-drawn animation, Disney did a lot of not stealing, but reusing and recycling pieces for different films. And them escaping the lava flow back to Atlantis reminded me a lot of the Cave of Wonders going down in Aladdin.
Yeah, I had the
Yeah,
same. I had the same vibe as well.
But I don't know if
I
that's
don't know the
taken
parallels.
hand-drawn storyboarding, if it's being recycled or not.
What I do know is most of the people involved in making this were the people involved in Hunchback. So
Okay.
that's the only definitive connection I know to other Disney movies. It's the Hunchback people. When the lava is pouring out, about to enter Atlantis, we see the drill go bye-bye. Is that where it was last we saw it? I didn't bother to rewind to check.
They
I'm
don't.
curious if you guys
Yeah.
kept up with that.
They don't. I don't think they move the drill after they reach Atlantis, right? They just move the trucks across the bridge and back and forth.
I think so.
Yes.
So I didn't know if that's the entry point they were at or not. And it looked different to me. It didn't look like an overlook, but I don't know if you guys thought differently.
You mean like if it was in the same place?
Yeah,
I do not know.
it's more like a continuity question.
Yeah, I do not know.
Okay.
I think you brought it up. The animation for Sweet was very difficult for them because of how fast the man talked.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the most noticeable with just Milo and him in the King's throne room after he passes away. I think that's the worst talking animation on Sweet in that moment.
I could agree with that. It's a lot more focused on him as well, so it's more apparent. Because in his introduction, when he's talking really fast about the fill up this cup. Oh, I'm from there. Blah blah. All that. You're kind of distracted by the humor and everything else being portrayed. But here, it's just them talking to each other.
Yeah.
Makes it a lot more apparent.
Lucky also that the Atlanteans just had a bunch of like ships that still work lying around after 10,000 years.
Well,
they're made well.
yeah, the fact that I had that many, I would say, is lucky. I think it's fine that they all work because they've never been. I guess with what Kita said, they haven't been working, and the one they tested did work. So I think that can just be put onto all of them.
What I find weird is that they're just lying around everywhere. You'd think after 10,000 years they'd put them in like a parking lot or something, centralize all of them instead of just have them laying around everywhere.
They all know what they do, so
that would be saying the Atlanteans are evolving.
Oh right. Their culture is dying. Right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Okay, so quick question.
They say they're devolving.
Would you rather live in this version of Atlantis, after Milo's there, so the civilization's coming back, or would you rather live on Pandora?
No, gosh.
Atlantis.
At least I breathe nicely.
Yeah, I'd take Atlantis.
Well, the Pandora example: are you an avatar or are you a human?
No, Navi. Well, I guess
you're an avatar unless you take Jake's route.
This sounds like a recap question.
I guess, yeah.
Something I liked when the force field had the lava over it and hardened. The cracking pattern is of Atlantean design, and it's not just random symbols and shapes.
Yeah, it's the same. I think it's the same pattern as the one that was on the circle that Kita's ethereal storm stood on.
Yeah, I love the visual aesthetic of that.
So do I.
Going throughout the city and on the dome looked awesome. When the Guardians stepped out to the edge of the waterfall, that looked beautiful. When we get the back side of them facing the volcano before they make the barrier, beautiful. That's like almost wallpaper material right there. I like it.
I agree. It's very, very artistically done, as they would say.
Yeah. This specifically is when I asked about the water, because the force field cuts off the waterfalls. Yeah. But we covered all that already.
Yeah.
Next thing I really have here is when they're taking the photo at the end of the whole crew. That guy took a horrible photo.
Oh, is that what you took with that?
Cameras. You think they cropped the faces off intentionally?
Oh yeah, I think they cropped the faces off intentionally. So they all can theoretically have a private photo for themselves. But then because the public aspect of it needs to be, edited out.
Yeah, I was kind of 50-50 on that as well.
I'm 50-50 on it, but I'd prefer the other one because it makes more sense. That
they could have had two photos.
Yeah.
One of the actual group photo, and then the one that Whitmore's looking at is a second photo they used.
That's the edited one. Yeah.
I think it was just taken that way. I don't think it's edited at all because of the shape of that photo compared to the other photos in his hand. I think they're like, okay, now we need one for like public eye, and then they just told the camera guy like move the camera downward or something.
Maybe.
I think it was intentionally taken that way and not edited.
Right. That works for me.
But it does.
I don't think they instructed the guy to lower it. I think either.
Not in the scene.
Oh, you mean when developing it?
Yes, because you're thinking that it's the same photo that's been edited. I don't think it's edited at all because of the shape of it comparing to the other shapes of the photos in Whitmore's hand. I think it's just a second photo that was taken afterwards.
No. Well, when you use film, which they were using, right? Or was this Polaroid? I don't know.
Presumably.
This was film, right?
This was definitely filmed because
yeah,
Packard's
so
taking photos during the whole fight.
During development of the photo, you can just move where the image is in relation to the paper, cropping their heads off. I think it's definitely more towards editing in that regards, because the photograph, it's not whiteboarded on the top, right? It's just cut off where the heads were.
Let me look.
If it's a white border, I'll agree with you.
It's
if it's just cut off on their heads, it's white bordered.
It's whiteboarded.
All right, I'll agree with you. Let's see. They're all pretty rich. They're all fancy dressed.
Yeah,
They're
they all got their
building
money.
up their stories.
Mole looks really weird.
He's so clean.
And then he dives into a pot. Thank God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then he returns to his character.
So I'll read this because just my notes are funny. So wall with the volcano is gonna go boom. Milo opens the cage. She activates a large rune standing on it, and then I put in parentheses, "Fuck if I know," and it activates the Titans, Iron Giants. Fuck if I know. I killed hundreds of things in the Lost Bet, and I'll do it again. God damn it! Because video games. Referring to the giants that put the shield up. So.
Yeah, what did Iron Giant say? I knew what you were referring to. Sprinks, you usually pay attention to voice acting. Did you notice anything with Cookie?
Like, did his voice actor change? Is that what you're asking me, or?
Yes, because it did.
Oh, Jim Cummings. Because why not?
Hmm?
I'll just throw in Jim Cummings if it's Jim Cummings, but I'm guessing it's not.
I don't remember the name of the guy. He died during. Apparently, he's a pretty big voice actor. He died, but most all the lines were done. The only line that isn't voiced by him is when Cookie's giving the grease at the end. That's somebody else.
Oh.
And they're uncredited in it.
Oh, uncredited.
They do a really good job of mimicking then.
Yeah, I never picked it up. So, in fact, I didn't know. Something I did catch that I believe, when they're all talking to Whitmore, the whole crew, they all have their crystal in a form on their outfit. Don't know if any of you caught that. In
No.
some regard, you can see that they all have their Atlantean crystal. Moles is in the center of his bow tie. Sweets is the top of his tie, like a tie tack. Audrey's is around her choker. Cookies is his tooth, his new tooth. Vinny's an earring, and Packard's is a what are those called? Brooch, I believe.
Yeah.
But it's all the same blue glow crystal.
Jim Varney was Cookie. Voice for Slinky.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
On the one, I do like the stories that they fabricate as well. Which is it Admiral Rourke? They refer to him as an admiral here in this scene, or did I hear that commander wrong? Because that's totally also could be a thing.
Don't remember.
I can look for you.
Anyways, they say he went insane, and then Helga just went missing, and Milo went down with the sub. Milo. See, I said his name a bunch of times in succession, so I can get his name right for most of the podcast.
Whitmore just says, and Rourke, and they just say he had a mental breakdown.
And Rourke. All right. Milo leaving Whitmore a crystal was a nice touch. Pretty big thing leaving his photograph with Whitmore as well. Pretty much his only tie to his grandfather left at this point.
Presumably he still has the hat. Maybe.
I didn't keep track of his bag. I don't know.
If I remember of the second film, I think he still has his hat.
Oh, okay. Does anyone have anything else?
I don't think I do.
I don't think I do either. Other than the fact that I think Milo had more than just himself carving the stone.
Oh, yeah. Obviously.
We have no reason to believe he has the carving skills. I agree. All right, then
He could have just
we
been doing the
finished.
finishing touches. Yeah. I think we are. Yeah.
Got his little personal touches in. All right, we'll go to our summary ratings, starting with writer.
All right. Let's do subjective first because I have a thing for adventure films. And while this isn't like the best movie ever, it's pretty fun. I had a lot of fun in the film. I was entertained thoroughly by just I think I'm trying to think of my least favorite character I didn't like that in the sense that they weren't entertaining to me. Um, I think it. I think the old lady might be my quote unquote least favorite character, the one that's smoking. Cackard. But even then, I still found her pretty funny in most of her scenes. I like the whole "I'm so done with this bullshit" kind of attitude that she always seems to carry with her.
We're all gonna die.
Yeah. So it's the movie's just a lot of fun. I absolutely probably will watch this again. I don't think it's gonna be a timeless classic for me in the way that it might be for some others. But it was just a lot of fun. So I'm just gonna repeat myself if I keep going on like that. So I think subjectively, I'm probably gonna give it a 7.5. I think it's pretty solid in terms of entertainment value for me. Objective. So this movie has a lot of world building problems. I don't even know if I can give it any points in the world building category because anything that was brought up was usually contradicted by something or broken in the way that it was introduced. Like the idea of the Atlanteans not being able to read their own language, it's not good. I think, like I said, there's a lot of interesting things they do play around with that I think are that are really good on the entertainment value front, but I don't think any of them are consistent enough for me to want to warrant it. There are some things that does improve upon the vibranium system in Black Panther, but overall it's the same kind of soft core magic system with the crystals and how they function. It is better in the sense that it's like a deity and it has its own will, which can explain away some of the magic aspect of it. I think we discussed the geography in detail earlier. So, but it does get the benefit of being like a fantasy film. Like it's not intentionally trying to be real, so that does help it a little bit. But there's still not. It's still really hard to follow a logical through line, especially as Springs kept noting throughout. They did their homework with a lot of small minor details with history and stuff like that. So that will factor in. In terms of the plot, man, it moves fast. It is very, very condensed. And I think we're all in agreement that this movie could have used an extra 20 minutes. That could have been spread out throughout the film to flush out certain things and help with certain things. Whether it be character time, intermingling with the plot, and just to kind of add the layers that I think that would have helped to make this movie better. But in terms of condensing things down to an hour and a half, they do a pretty decent job. I don't think anything is broken in terms of the plot. Rourke's not really a betrayal because you can pay attention to the character and you'd find it pretty obvious. So there's setup for him in the sense of his betrayal isn't sudden. I think kind of moving on to characters a little bit now. but it just moves too fast almost for its own good. And at times the plot can feel like they weren't sure with what they wanted to do with it, because I felt like montaging through the caves was kind of almost like wasted time. It's still good, but it goes with the thing is like it could have been sharpened to make things better. I think, and I guess the worst thing that happened in the plot is probably the last battle. There's a lot of plot armor in this film, and none of it's more obvious than in the last battle. They don't do the obvious thing of trying to shoot the balloons. They don't do, and I kind of already went through all the other smaller gripes that I have with it. I am happy the guns are mostly accurate. I don't think I saw a gun that wasn't inaccurate outside of the howitzer artillery gun they used to blow up the ceiling of the volcano they couldn't even see the top of. And then Rourke's death was pretty pathetic. That kind of bleeds into character a little bit in that, but it's also the world, but it's also the plot that made it happen, because Milo's not heavy enough to lift Rourke up into a helicopter's blade. So I guess I'll go into characters. Milo is kind of a fun, quirky protagonist to follow. I have so there are a few minor issues with him here and there, so I can't say he has a perfect arc, but kind of going back to the horn thing, I took issue with that in terms of character, and there's also tone problems that occur because of that. But I think overall Milo's a pretty likable character, and he's pretty well written in that he's socially awkward, and it slips out every now and again. And I'll focus on, I guess, on the side characters. I think they're all. I'm not going to go into too much detail because I want to leave stuff for you guys to talk about. But the side characters are all fun. They have just enough depth to them for us to understand them. At least the main ones. Hacker and Mole Man are the ones that we don't really get much backstory with. But Mole Man's intentional, which in a way adds stuff to his character. And then Hackerman is, we just kind of lose out on. She just kind of fades at the background. Though I think she has one of my favorite shots in the film with the old man cook having a double barrel on top of the Atlantean speed bike, and she's got an M1, and they're both just riding on the same hover bike, blasting as they go, which was kind of fun and amusing. And we don't really get anything for the cook, I think. But that's just a minor thing. He's serviceable and he's funny while he's there. So there's not really needs to be much that with him. And then Doc, Audrey, and Vinny, they all get enough for us to understand who they are. They're the ones who understand the most by the end. And Vinny has which I think is interesting, because Vinny has a very typically villainous look to him. So I kind of happy they didn't turn him into a villain, if that makes sense. So I think objectively, I think I'm sitting at about 5.5.
Okay.
I'm still resting on that, but I think 5.5 is respectable given what they don't do well, but they do character work decently well when we get it. So
Sweet.
Right.
We'll go with Sprinks next.
Oh wow, big shocker. Let's see. Subjective. I really enjoy the movie. It's not the best, not the worst. I'll see myself watching it again, and I recommend it. 7.5 subjective. Pretty easy. Objective. Let's go down the line here. It's an animated film that I can visually see transitional edited shots animated in, which is a creative approach that really stand out to me throughout the film, and it happens multiple times. I really like that. Voice acting, I think, is really well done. The animation is very creative and it's stylized. Crimson, as you said, from the art director of Hellboy, the Hellboy comics, which makes the film stand out in that aspect. The lighting usage, I think, was really cool. The blue lighting in areas, and then the lava glow contrasting with the water, the uses of red and blues, and how red is like dangerous, and the Leviathan's red eyes are like, kind of the only thing glowing in the deep ocean that stand out, and then the warning lights of the submarine flashing red, and then the shot that you commented on, Crimson, of the lava coming in, the red and orange lighting of the lava contrasting with the water of Atlantis of the blue. So it's a lot of that, and I think it really meshes together well and complements one another, of both being primary. This movie, on an objective viewing, made me do a lot of history, which kudos to the movie, because I don't care for history that much. It's the worst subject I did in school. So good for that. I do agree there's issues with the world, with what's going on in the world of 1914 currently, of where they are. I think the character bonding, though, was nice. Milo, I think, could have had a little more maybe with Packard, or just other characters that didn't really get the limelight with one another could have more together. There wasn't much on Helga and like Audrey, but they could have been. So I think what they have thrown in works well, especially with cutting back to things they've already talked about, like Sweet and his femur saw that comes back later in the film, or Milo and the nitroglycerin that then Vinny comments on later. So like the callbacks to kind of give a more cemented bonding character with one another that they remember, and kind of inside joke like.
Two for flinching.
Yeah, I like that. What else is there? The cinematography, I guess the shots, there's some really good establishing shots and wide angles. Not all of them work, as Ryder pointed out, of the one where the drill machine is just gone and vanished. But for the establishing shot of Atlantis, a sacrifice was made. Yeah. Objectively, I'm gonna give it a 7.
Okay. I'll start with my subjective. As I said at the beginning, I've always enjoyed this film. Going through it with an objective lens, it has not changed how I feel enjoying it. So I give it an 8. Definitely a film I'll watch again. Objectively, I didn't really have a pinned down number at the start of this, but I have decided by the end. I'm giving it a 6. The whole ship size compared to the sub is a minor issue, but an issue nonetheless. The volcano, having done a little bit of the research looking into volcano maps near Iceland, high likelihood that volcano would be underwater, so that is a problem. The snow, also very minor, but pointing it out. I think it's a pretty big problem, them not shooting the balloon. Even with the devil's advocate of maybe they're afraid of her getting blown up, it's not enough. It's very minor. So I think that's a problem. I think the biggest problem in this is the language being forgotten, because that's kind of the whole point of Milo's existence and their requirement of him. Like, we need Milo to figure out our history, save our place. But they should never have lost it in the first place. Them forgetting how to use their vehicles doesn't add up to them forgetting their language, because they should just know how to do it mechanically. It's the world building in regards to Atlantis itself just does not add up at all. Funny enough, I think the magic system improved during our talks here. I had a lot of problems with it in the beginning. Our in-depth talks about it, I think, have improved it slightly for me. I agree with Ryder with it being like a deity. Certainly helps it. Yeah, lots of other stuff are just like paper cut, small stuff. I agree with you guys with the Milo weight issue with Rourke. Didn't catch that. Definitely a problem. And anticlimactic. I guess more subjectively, I would have loved to have seen a longer fight with Crystal Rourke. He was so cool looking, but he was like that for like 5 seconds, if that.
We all agree another 20 minutes would have been good for the film.
Yeah.
So with
18 minutes
all
for
that-
character, 2 minutes for fight. There we
Yes. Oh, I guess just touch on characters. I enjoy all of them. The only one I think that not needs, but I prefer more is Mole. I don't think I need more on Packard. I think she's in there enough for how minimal of a role she has, and same with Cookie. Mole, it's kind of like 3 layers, I think, of the background cast. You got the ones that have more of a place, like Doc, Vinny, them. Then you get the secondary ones from that, which is unfortunately Mole, even though he feels like he should be with the others. Cookie, and then the last one would be like Packard, because she doesn't get much of anything. But all of them pretty enjoyable. Rourke, I'd prefer, this would also be more subjective, that he would have been more of a surprise twist villain, because it's pretty obvious that he was not a good guy in this. I guess a question for you, writer, since this is your first time viewing, did you always expect him to be bad, or
Rourke,
pretty
you
much
mean?
once they entered the city?
You mean Rourke?
Who'd I say?
You said Rourke, but just to clarify.
Yeah,
Yes, Rourke.
I'm a classic Crowfish. Yeah, I pretty much suspected him because he, when we first meet him, so I knew him for like day one. Like day one, we met him outside the sub with Whitmore. I'm not good at names. But I pretty much suspected him being bad from there because he lets it slip like, he says something Milo says something about knowledge being enriching or something like that. And the way Rourke says his next sentence of being like, oh, I'm sure there will be something enriching about this voyage for all of us. I immediately took that, okay, so he's after the power source or the riches. So I knew pretty much from the beginning that was his goal. And then I just took this part in the city as confirmed with his conversation in Helga.
Okay. Yeah, I always thought it's pretty obvious. I guess last thing I have to bring up is, and I forgot to bring this on my subjective again. So personally, I'm not the biggest fan of like South American. In this case, they said what place did they say?
Mesopotamia?
No, Cambodia, which is in Asia. So I'm not a big fan of South American or some Asian like ancient art styles. Not the biggest fan of those. But I think the way they utilize those inspirations in this, by using cool colors instead of warm, because predominantly they use reds, oranges, stuff like that. But the uses of blues and grays in this, I think, are very visually pleasing. I quite like it. It makes this really stand out and be unique, I think.
Sorry, you finish. You finish. Go on.
Oh, are you going to bring up like Forerunners and Halo or something?
No, I was
Because
actually.
they also have a similar color scheme.
That's true, but I actually was going to bring up. There's actually in one of my psychology courses that I took in college, there was a big thing about how red and blue can, in just the colors in themselves, can provoke of you different emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just gonna add that a little bit onto your tidbit. Even though I hate modern art, just
like if you paint a room blue, you're more likely to have a calmer demeanor, and vice versa.
Yeah,
with red, more of an energetic sense. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That is Atlantis.
Yeah.
Any final words before Ryder closes out?
We may cover the second one in the future sometime.
Great.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah. I guess I do have some fun with this because no one really talked about Kita. Kita as a character was serviceable. I quite liked her in terms of she's a good balance between being like wanting to be proactive in trying to get her culture back while also being just naive enough to I guess, move the plot along. And I found her scenes with Milo to be very wholesome for the most part. You could buy the chemistry, more or less. I think it's just a small bit because Kita gets a lot of development, and then she's pretty much gone for the whole third act when she's sucked away into the crystal.
When she evolves.
Yeah,
That's true. Yeah, she's pretty good. First Disney princess to become a queen as well. Lots of firsts.
Oh, interesting.
That's true.
Another fact right at the end.
Yeah.
Like I said, there were a lot for this.
Yeah. I have to think about all my Disney princesses now because I don't know. I didn't know Kita existed, so I have to rank her now among the rest. All right. With that, shall I read us out, gentlemen?
I believe so.
All right. Well, as always, audience, thank you for listening wherever you are, whether it be Amazon, Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Castbox, Overcast, Pocket Casts, and Samsung. And as always, thank you for watching. If you're on YouTube, you've got our PNG Tubers stuff, so feel free to like and leave comments wherever you're listening, and tell us how much you hate our opinions or how much you love them. And as always, I have been a Geeky Writer.
I'm Crimson Maroon.
And I'm Sprinks.
And we will catch you next time. Later, everybody.
Bye.
Toodaloo.